Okay, just so you know, we're recording.
Okay, I make a motion to open the meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Yes, I do need to see your name, please.
I know. It's a new beginning. Yeah, there we go.
I know your names, but I lose it.
It's been a long day, too. Well, first, I'd like to welcome our new trustees. One trustee's on vacation, but welcome, Dave. to the
Thank you.
board. Yep.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Starting in. Okay, so before we begin, are there any board members who have a conflict of interest or anything to disclose this evening regarding the agenda items? I do not.
I do not. I do not.
I have a concern about a possible conflict of interest regarding item number 7. This is my concern, and our attorney is not here yet. On his arrival, I would like to go into attorney-client session regarding the item. Okay, so with that in mind, can we have the open meeting compliance and certification read, please?
Sure. Okay, the public will have opportunities to comment on specific agenda items when they occur in the meeting and also in general matters at the end of the meeting. Speakers can comment once in each comment window if it is on a specific agenda item. It is not a debate, deposition, or panel discussion. Speakers must step to the front of the room if physically able. Alternatively, they may provide comments from where they are seated. If an attendee is participating via web conference technology such as Zoom, the clerk will announce how attendees should signal that they wish to comment. This may differ by platform, but is typically accomplished through the raise the hand feature. We are using Zoom this evening. If you do wish to speak to the trustees, please raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak directly. If you wish for me to ask the question, please put it in the Q&A. I do not respond to the chat section. Thank you. Speakers must give their name, address, and organization. There shall be an exemption of any category of people protected by New York State law. So that also applies to our Zoom attendees. Please give me your name and address. I recognize the names, but I don't always remember where you live. So please put it in there. Let's see here. Speakers must be recognized by a presiding officer. Speakers must limit their remarks to 3 minutes on a given topic. Speakers may not yield any remaining time they may have to another speaker. Board members may, with the permission of the mayor, only interrupt a speaker during their remarks for a purpose of clarification or information. Speakers must observe the commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. Interested parties or their representatives may address the board by written communications to villageclerk@villageofpittsburgh.com. All written communications will become part of the public record and will be attached to the minutes for that meeting. At the senator's request, written communications will be read aloud by the clerk at the meeting and will adhere to the 3-minute time limit. If printed materials or other media are provided by attendees during the meeting, they must be submitted to the village board with optional distribution to audience members. All materials will be part of the public record. Private distribution of materials to audience members only is prohibited. And there you go.
Okay. Oh, I thought for sure there was more.
Oh, no.
Okay, thanks for reading that. Okay, we're going to start with our first agenda item this evening, and these are actually several non-municipal use permits. The first one up is Pittsford Pub. Here we are. Hello, come on up. Good. Oh, we need a chair for you.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm Scott Thyra, owner of the Pittsford Pub. And what we want to do, we did this back in 2019 when the senior PGA Tour was here, or tournament was here. We want to put a tent up over the patio. Hank Parker, the big tent company, they're going to be doing it. And it's going to be going up on May the 8th and coming down on the 22nd, or the Monday after the PGA.
Yeah, we have the information in front of us. Are there any questions from the board on this?
No, just one. It sounds like a nice plan. This does not really change the pedestrian traffic flow in the area?
No, not at all. Not at all. Just using the same doors, same
Yeah.
ingress.
I think I remember it from the other tournaments.
Yeah, it worked out great. You know, if you get any sprinkles of rain, you don't have
Yeah.
to move. a bunch of tables inside, and there probably won't be any tables to be had inside.
Right,
You
right,
know,
which we hope, right?
Which we hope,
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
So that's what we want to
And I
do.
recall that our building inspector also comes and inspects the tents once they're installed
Yeah,
to make certain that they're stable and
Yes.
windproof and all that.
he does do that.
Okay.
Yep, Steve, did you want to add anything to that? I saw
Yeah,
your,
you're also looking at entertainment on Friday night.
Yep, I talked to Steve about that. We were gonna have a little live music on the patio on Friday night. What did I tell you? I don't have that paper. Did I say 7 to 10, or what did I say?
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
6 to 9.
Okay, yeah.
Acoustic, is that right? What's the sound system?
You know,
Very small.
they showed it to Steve, yeah.
Reasonably quiet.
Okay,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll make sure it stays reasonably quiet. Very reasonably quiet. So that's it.
No louder than the train.
Yeah, right. Well, then we're gonna get pretty loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else from the board? No comments? I mean, just,
Oh,
that's what I was,
I'm not doing my job, sorry.
no, it's all good.
No, I have no public comment.
Okay, is there a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept the non-municipal use permit submitted by Pittsford Pub for the dates May 9th to May 22nd. Did I have that right?
May 8th.
May
8th through the
May
21st, to the 21st.
Well, it'll come, the tournament will end on the 21st, but they won't come get the tent until the 22nd. That
Oh, okay,
Monday.
so that's, for your event. I see where
Yes.
you're going on that.
Sorry, I
Okay,
had that
okay. I see where
application
you're
in front
going.
of me.
Okay,
Okay, and
gotcha.
the 22nd.
Yes.
And waive the 45-day
2023.
requirement.
Thank you.
Did you second?
Waive the 45-day requirement.
Oh, we have
Yeah.
to.
Waive the 45 days, yep.
already?
I know, it's coming up.
Oh, it's wild,
I
isn't
know.
it?
I know, I'm already through June
I think
somehow.
it's a month from tomorrow. Isn't it tomorrow the 15th?
14th,
Well, no, tomorrow's the 14th.
Yeah. it's coming up,
It's coming up.
I know.
Okay.
All right.
So we have a motion?
We have a motion.
Okay,
Jamie, yes.
excuse me?
Oh, I was just gonna, I'm his neighbor, Charlie Fitzsimmons. I own Judgment next door, and I fully support it. Great neighbor, it'll be awesome.
You as well, Tyler.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
well, hang on, we're not done.
Oh, we're not done.
We're not done, no, we're not ready to go yet, no.
That was easy.
So now we have a motion, and so now we need a second.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, they're jumping on it, okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Lanfair,
Aye.
trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye,
Motion passes.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thanks,
Well,
guys.
good luck with all of
Thanks,
it.
we'll
We're
see you
very
around.
excited. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a non-municipal permit for Copperleaf Brewing Company.
Oh, they're good too.
Yeah, we're getting a good turnout. Wow. How are you?
Good. For those that don't know me, I'm Clay Killian, one of the owners of Copperleaf Brewing Company, 50 State Street.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. So what would you like to do?
We're looking to have a vendor set up in a parking space for our anniversary party.
2 years, wow.
That's crazy.
That went fast.
By fast, yeah, for sure.
Wow. So it's a single, just like a one-day event? or how's
Yeah,
this?
one day event,
Right.
the 22nd. We're looking to have them there from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the evening.
Mhm.
And it should be a pretty easy setup and pack out according to the vendor.
Okay, okay, I see where you are, right there. And you've worked this out also with the landlord as well?
Yep, yeah,
Everything's all
emailed
good.
Charlie, he's
Okay.
given us his okay for it.
The blessing?
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, did you have anything to add about the request from
No
Copperleaf?
concerns, on specs, whatever they put up, the same as they would any other.
Okay, okay,
There's no change in the traffic pattern down there or anything? Okay.
okay. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board here? Anything else online, please?
No, nothing online.
Okay,
Anyone else here? Any other public comments?
I'm just seeing smiles. Okay. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, do we need to, what's the date for the?
You gotta wait for 45.
We do? We're waiving the 45?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the non-municipal use permit for Copperleaf Brewing Company as presented, and that we also waive the 45-day notice requirement.
And the event date is on,
The event date is on 4/22/2023.
I will second.
okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lampier,
Aye.
trustee Lightgev,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer,
Hi,
motion passes.
wonderful.
great. Thank
Happy
you.
anniversary, a little bit early.
Anniversary.
That's great, that's great news.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, we're really on a roll. Neutral Ground Coffee House.
I don't see Mary Ann.
I don't see her either.
I
Okay,
guess that's me.
okay, so you're going to
I do
represent her?
represent someone tonight.
Okay,
So NutriGround, they're looking to have, again, for the PGA Week, an event May 15th through the 21st. They're looking for extended hours, live music on the front porch, outdoor grilling on the left of the porch, advertising banner for the event.
okay. Yeah, Lily?
I did have a question, and maybe, I don't know who would answer it.
Okay.
She also mentioned that she was going to be grilling outdoors. I thought I saw that somewhere, is that
Yeah.
right?
That's what I said, outdoor grilling.
Now, is that something that you have to inspect, Steve,
Yeah, I
before?
would inspect
Yeah.
whatever device they're using to grill, and I'm sure it's just a regular
Okay.
grill, you know what I mean?
It's placement, I think, that we would want to look at
Yeah,
as,
I will make sure it's not underneath any
Okay.
enclosure, things like that.
yes, one fire there is enough.
Okay.
We had a fire there already. so-
Oh, and it's
Go
4
another
to
one.
7. Okay, so it's like a 3-hour window for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
7 to 9.
I see 4 to
Oh,
7.
she's extending the hours to 9 o'clock. Oh, the grilling is 4 to 7.
Yeah, but the grill, I was just looking, so it's just like a little window where she's grilling something for 3 hours. Okay. All righty. Are there any other questions from the board about this or comments?
Steve,
Yeah,
do you-
Dave?
thanks. Steve, do you have any understanding on where the banner will be or what shape and form it will take?
I'm sure the banner would be hung right on the front of the building. so-
You're Mary Ann.
Sorry, guys.
All right.
The traffic out there is insane.
That's okay.
Yeah, come on up.
Come on up,
Okay.
join the group. So we were just,
God, is this where I
that's
sit?
where you this is your chair.
Okay.
Welcome. Okay, deep breath.
Thank you.
We're
Yep,
good.
I'm all good.
Okay, traffic's over. You're here. Yeah, so there were just for a couple questions. What about the banner being hung up?
Yeah, so I just wanted to put up a temporary banner announcing what we're doing there. I don't know, like a 3x12 banner on the backside of, so the porch,
Right.
on the inside part.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
And it's just going to state that we're doing extended hours. We're going to extend our hours from 6 AM to 9 PM. We're going to hopefully do some live music Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 2 people acoustic, like just like some nice little acoustic right on the porch.
Yeah.
And we're going to do some grilling. If anybody was there during candlelight night, we grilled hot dogs. So it's going to be very similar to that. Yeah.
Okay.
The dates for the banner, would that be a few days before the event or?
I'd actually like to put it up like maybe 2 weeks before the event.
For people to see it.
And to be taken down after the event?
Yeah, of course, temporary banner. It's going to be PGA specific and about what we're doing that week.
Okay, all righty. Any other comments from the board? Are there any comments online?
No comments online.
Okay, yep, there's a comment from Steve.
The only thing I have to check is make sure the temporary signage ordinance, to make sure timeframes of when it can be put up and taken down.
Okay,
So I will verify that
and work with Mary Ann.
Thank
You
you.
let me know, Steve.
Okay, great.
Like I said, it's just like an awareness thing that we're doing this.
Mhm.
But, yeah, we're extending our hours from 6 AM to 9 PM and,
Yeah.
you know, as a small business owner, we have to take advantage of this
Oh, yeah.
amazing event here. So,
This is big,
yeah, huge.
only to be followed by the eclipse.
And you guys all know, like, I'm nerding out on the eclipse. I'm like all over that. I got
I think-
custom coffee.
There we go, I think we're all on it.
Yes.
Are there any other comments from the audience or the public here tonight? Yes?
I would just like to say that Neutral Ground is a great neighbor.
Aw, thanks, Clay.
That's nice to hear.
I love it. I already talked to Ross over at Label 7.
Yeah.
He's all about
Yeah,
that. He's great.
Supporting.
So
Okay.
super supportive about
Right.
everything that I talked to him about
Okay.
and that I'm sharing with you guys, so.
Great, all righty. Yes, Dave?
Steve, it's 2 weeks, so we're good. on the banner.
Okay,
Yeah,
2 weeks?
it's 16812A, 1D.
thank you.
Good to go.
Oh, okay, we're in the loop here. Okay, any other comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this application.
You'll wait the 45 days.
Yep,
I'll make a motion that we approve the non-municipal use permit for Neutral Grounds Coffee House for an event from Monday 5/15 to Sunday 5/21, and also that we waive the 45-day notice.
is there a second?
Oh, go ahead. Go
I'll
ahead.
second.
There you go, you got the second.
Got one in.
Okay, you got one
There you
in.
go.
Okay.
I've done something.
All right, trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Hi,
Motion passes.
okay.
I love you guys. Thank you
Right back
so
at
much.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, this is great, we're all excited about the PGA, we
Thank
really want
you.
our businesses to
I am so appreciative.
take
Thank you
advantage
guys
of it.
so much.
Thanks so much. Okay. Okay, next up, we have Cornhill Waterfront and Navigation. It is the Sam Patch. And you know, spring is here when the Sam Patch is coming into the village, right? Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just.
Appreciate that.
I guess I am the Sam Patch.
You are.
All right.
The honorary.
This is our annual permit for the Sam Patch for their public charter. They're in student educational boat tours. They're looking to start on May 12th, go through October 31st, and nothing looks like it's changing from past years.
Yeah, actually, the only thing that's changed is the Canal Corporation is, because of the PGA, they're filling up this section of the canal a little bit ahead of time, so the Sam Patch can come down in the Colonial Bell. So I think that's kind of great, so. Yep. Any,
No comments from the public?
okay, so
And we
Yep.
waive the 45-day notice.
waive the 45, yep, okay.
Mayor Plummer?
Yep.
On your comment then, this special permit, the event date is May 12th.
Mhm.
Is that early enough for the PGA? For all, everything?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Just checking.
The PGA starts on the 15th, the practice rounds, yeah, and then it ends on the 21st.
Okay,
So, yeah, they're kind of a little bit in advance, which is kind of nice.
great.
Yep. Okay.
I will make a motion that we approve the non-municipal use permit for Sam Patch for the 2023 season, boating season, extending from May 12th to October 23rd, did you say?
31st.
31st. Same conditions as previously approved. I think we had addressed trash removal and some other things
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like that included also in this
Yep.
permit as well. Thank
And waiving the 45.
Waiving
Waiving the 45 day,
on the
thank you.
45 days here, I'm telling you. Okay, so we have a motion, is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, go Sam Patch. Next up, Pittsburgh Town Library.
All right, I know I'm in the library.
You are the library.
I am the library. So this is the second year for the Pittsburgh Community Library. What they're doing is doing that outreach program that they did last year along the canal, and they're looking to extend, and they're going to have the bike out, and they sent us a picture of the bike and everything. And they're very excited to get out there. So they provided dates that they anticipate being able to do it, and they provided us some rain dates. And I think the earliest starts June 9th. So we'll just waive that 45-day notice because I can't count. But
Yeah.
so pretty much, it's a great thing. So it's an educational reach out for the library.
It's a nice community event. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah. Any thoughts or questions from the board on this application?
Steve, you have authority about table location and all that fun stuff for safety reasons.
Any event, I'll take care of it. I'll look at what's set up.
Great. Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay, anything online or,
Nope, everybody's happy online right now.
okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the event by the Pittsburgh Community Library taking place from June 9th to July, on the following dates, June 9th, July 7th, and August 4th. I guess the original date is the I'm sorry, we have multiple dates here.
Yeah, we do, we know. I was
Scheduled
thinking-
dates and range dates, so.
Okay. Can I just say the dates as listed? The dates
Yes,
and
that would
dates as
work.
listed, and I will waive the 45-day requirement.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, our village attorney is here, and I expressed a concern about a possible conflict of interest that I have potentially with item 7 on the agenda, and I would like to go into attorney-client session at this time.
Question. Is it in any way reasonable to move through some of the additional special permits and public hearing comments for the people here and then address the attorney-client session later, prior to number 7? Yeah.
Either way, we need to address it.
Sure.
Okay, so why
I
don't
would
we,
also appreciate that. We've got the public hearings coming
Yeah, we
at
do.
7 o'clock too.
We do.
and it's 10 minutes
and it
up,
might take a
so-
little longer. Good point. Okay, so we'll move along, but we are going to have that at some point. All right. Next up, we have the special permit for the Cycle Cafe. And,
Thank you. So,
name, please.
my name is Chuck Mancini.
Oh, do you want to chair?
34th Crossing, Honeoye Falls, New York. And I am seeking a special use permit from the Village Board of Trustees to operate a cycling cafe on the Reynolds property at 5 State Street, and an accessory use permit to allow outdoor seating. We met with this board on March 23rd to present information only, and we're doing the same today. But today I am asking the board to schedule a public hearing for April 27th and to vote on our permits at that date. There were a number of questions that this board posed to me at that meeting on the 23rd, and so I brought answers. Again, this is information only, and updates. First, I want to report on the outcome of the meeting we had with the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals on April 5th, which will also address one of the board's questions regarding rubbish removal. So we requested 3 variances from the planning board. One was to eliminate parking, the second was a lot coverage variance, and the third was a solid wall fence height variance. The planning board approved all 3 variances. We also asked for site plan approval. That was not approved. And there was one outstanding item that was a concern to the planning board, and that was our plans for rubbish removal. So as I think you might recall, the Reynolds family that owns the property that I'll be leasing, they have a 32-year-old easement in place for rubbish removal that's been used by Empire Paint, Starbucks, Rachel's, etc. I was planning to use that easement, but apparently there's some controversy regarding that. And so what the planning board asked me was to either get consent from the owner of the Village Bakery, where the shared dumpsters reside, because the shared dumpsters under that easement are on the Village Bakery property. So they said either I need to get consent from the owner of the Village Bakery or come up with a plan B for rubbish removal. So that was the condition, and they said if we can address that and represent an alternate plan on April 25th, when they have a special meeting, they'll reconsider our site plan for approval. So site plan is not approved, but this is also the same question that this board asked, which was what are our plans for rubbish removal. I've had a dialogue with the Reynolds family that owns the property, and they do not believe it's appropriate to ask for consent under a legal easement. A legal easement is a legal right. If you have a legal right, there's no need to ask for consent. So we will not be asking for consent, and instead we're going to present a plan B to the planning board. That plan B involves taking what was originally going to be a bike wash area, and we're going to use it to store dumpster toters. We can get 6 in there. So our design team went to work after the planning board meeting, and they designed a slightly different fenced-in area that'll be fully cover the, there'll be 5-foot high fencing, which was approved. The toters are only like 3.5 feet high. And there'll be sliding fences on either side. Sliding doors on either side of the north and south end. And so the rubbish removal company, on their day to pickup, will be able to walk through our courtyard, slide the door open, wheel the toters out, and take care of our rubbish. So I've actually, Ryan, do we have a rendering that we can show?
Can I ask you a favor, please? Can you move over here, and can you move the tripod just over sort of in front of the podium? I think that way we can see our neighbors here in the audience. And so, thank you so much for doing that, just because it's sort of blocking everybody out there. So it's angled over, thank you.
By the way, the rendering that's shown here now reflects the changes that were requested by the Historic Preservation Board. So the renderings we presented at the last information-only session did not have those changes. These changes do reflect the Historic Preservation Board's comments.
So this is all now incorporating the latest of pretty much everything
That we're proposing.
from both of those boards, what we're seeing.
We believe this is the best Plan B alternative without using the historical 32-year-old shared dumpster. I have some smaller versions if necessary.
Well, here's one. Okay, thanks.
Good job. So this was not our preferred preference. Our preferred preference is to use the existing easement. So we will present this to the planning board. The one thing we will tell the planning board is if we can have access to our 32-year-old easement, we're willing to give up this Plan B dumpster area. We realize that a lot of patrons of the Village Bakery will need to walk past this. It might not be ideal for those patrons, but that's the only alternative we have if we don't have access to our easement. So this is our latest proposal, but I can tell this board in good faith that if the shared dumpster easement is indeed valid and we can use it without any hindrance, that is our intent to use that, and I'm willing to give this up. The one thing that we are not willing to give up, however, is parking in front of this door. So my background is prior to retiring from a corporation a year and a half ago, I was 9 years on the management team of a mining and chemical company, a global mining and chemical company. A big part of my responsibility as a senior leader in that business was safety. And safety is extremely important to me. In fact, every one of our management meetings would start with a safety share, where we would talk about safety practices at home, at work, emergency exits, things like that. Safety is one of my core elements, and if I'm going to operate a cycling cafe, I want my patrons that are in that cycling cafe to have 2 exits, an emergency, the exit from the front and the exit from the side. Having cars blocking my emergency exit is not something that's going to be appropriate for me. I do not think that's legal, and so I checked with the village, and I understand that it is indeed illegal to park cars in front of an emergency exit. So the exit door that's shown on this rendering, whether we end up with the garbage there or not, it's illegal to park a car in front of an emergency exit. So whatever we do, whether there's nothing there, or whether there's a dumpster, or whether there's a rubbish containment area there, we still can't have parking in front of the door. If the village is going to permit parking in front of this door, I will not operate the cafe, because I think it puts my patrons at risk inside the cafe. But the good news is the fire marshal has confirmed my concerns. So that wraps up the rubbish question and the planning board. The next question was regarding the survey map. And so what we did following the meeting is we engaged a Marathon.
Hang on, before we sort of keep going on this. We sort of have a finite, we have a big schedule here, so you're before us to actually try to set the hearing for the special use permit. And I think what we're looking for as a board is, do we have enough information going forward
Right.
to set the hearing?
Right.
You know, so, I mean, we appreciate the presentation,
Right,
but
so-
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but,
That's fine. So just
you
to
know, just
recap,
to,
there's three other questions I can answer. One was the survey map, the other one was plans for employee parking, the other one was EDA parking, and the other one was the interior floor plan. So I can answer any of those questions that were posed.
so
at the
why don't we
last
bring it back to the board for questions? And also, I know, Steve, you may want to weigh in on a couple things and possibly, Jeff?
I have a preliminary question for Steve. What is this going to do to the fire emergency access?
Pardon?
What is this going to do to the emergency access? I mean, you take
This-
that. Go ahead.
And there's a larger one here.
I mean, that has to be the secondary egress exit from this facility.
I understand,
Wire, like,
the plan, what is this plan going to do to that?
nothing.
Does it impact the exit at all?
The way he says it, no.
Okay.
I will
Oh, I
state, this for clarification,
So this isn't, oh, here it is.
the only thing that would be required, because there is an easement for the use of that parking space. The only thing that would be required, or should be necessary, would be to carve out a 3-foot section in front of that door for no parking. You have to have a minimum of 3 foot, it's a 3-foot door. You have to allow that door to open at a full 90 degrees in order to make, to be called an emergency exit. And just for the record, most people I talked to said even that opening that 3-foot door, at like the fire department here, they would not like the fact that you open the door and there's a car up there. So you have to have-
No,
you have to have
we're
three-
talking about, I know, we're talking about what's being presented right now.
That does not block the emergency exit.
So my question is, there's safe egress through the dumpsters. Are they going through the dumpsters?
They don't go through dumpsters. Dumpsters are off to the side of it. No, they would be going in that, the spot.
What spot?
From the door forward. Which is legally on that property.
One quick second, just one quick second, and then we'll get to you, I promise. Yeah, just any additional questions from the board at this point on this information?
Yes.
Okay.
Were the legal questions answered that were our concern at the last meeting?
So, in my opinion, each of these properties have rights on the other's property. It's not our job to enforce them, make them work, or anything of that nature. And we've always had a policy, and now it's codified, that we will not interfere with private property rights, that we will do nothing which will interfere with those private property rights. In my view, whether or not this can be used for parking, whether or not it's worth anything at all, this is a space that's been reserved to share with the rear property. I think this board would be going down a problematic road if it did anything that would impact the ability of the rear parcel to share this space for whatever reason.
Regardless of use.
Right, so, I mean, whether or not it's still any good, whether or not the rear parcel can put it to anything of any value or any use, that's a Supreme Court judge's job,
Okay.
in my judgment.
So just one question for you, Mr. Turner. If I were to eliminate the garbage and eliminate the previously proposed pipe wash area and leave it untouched,
And I think
then
this board could approve a special, well, hold on. If the board were predisposed to approve a special permit, it would not be objectionable on the basis of interference with that space.
Okay, so I'm prepared to do that. The next question is though, what are my obligations with respect to rubbish removal? Because I believe that the Reynolds property has a 32-year-old easement, but the planning board in effect told us last week that they're not going to approve that.
Well, this board is not going to take any position, well, I'm going to recommend this, that they not take any position with regard to that issue. I realize it's a problem that has to be solved. I don't think can be solved by that space.
Okay. So then, assuming I have an easement in place, that the Reynolds property has an easement in place, which it has for the last 32 years, then I'm willing to give up that re-proposed dumpster space and the bike wash space.
I just want to be clear about one thing regarding this board's jurisdiction. Those issues, the site plan issues of how parking is resolved and how garbage is resolved and that sort of thing is a site plan issue. I again will recommend to this board they not make any comments about that issue, because my recommendation would be that if the board chooses to do a special permit, it will be conditioned on all of those issues being resolved in site plan. The way our code is set up, this board does the special permitting first, and then any after variances, and then any site plan is resolved after that. So the answer to your question is, if this is gone, then the legal questions have been resolved for this board.
Just for our board.
I have a clarification question as well. As far as the special test for special use permits are concerned, you said it was not our purview, and I understand this very well. Site plan and parking is not a part, but yes, it is mentioned in the special use permit process.
Right, but this board, I mean, you don't want really two boards dealing with the same issue, because they could come to contrary results. So typically, with those kind of site plan issues in the past, this board has deferred. In fact, the previous permit for this property, when it was Starbucks, and maybe even the bakery's permit, was conditioned on site plan approval to resolve those issues.
To go back to that, one of the issues that I recall is that the presence of handicap parking in front of the Starbucks building was mandatory for them in order to open, and that isn't I thought that was state or federal, that that's not necessary?
I have no idea, and really, that again is a planning board issue. They have issued the variance for parking, so they have a 0 on-site requirement. What that does to handicap parking requirements, I do not know.
Because they waived all parking.
I don't know.
My engineer has researched it, and he advises that if you have a site approved with no parking, you have no obligation to provide ADA parking.
Okay.
So we have no obligation to provide ADA parking under state codes or
Correct.
federal codes.
There is no requirement for a handicap space if there is no required parking.
There is not? Okay. Because I remember that specifically regarding that application and the providing, maybe it's something that Starbucks, I don't
If you have
know.
one to 25 spaces, you have to have one handicap. If you have 0 spaces, you are not required to have a handicap space.
Okay, we're looking at it from opposite ends then. So you're saying that because the Planning and Zoning Board removed the requirement for any parking,
Correct.
that eliminates the requirement for ADA,
Correct.
even though the prior business could not operate theoretically, according to what I remember from, without it.
Correct. They had a different requirement for parking,
We had 7 spaces.
which led into the need or the requirement for the handicap spot. Once the parking requirement was removed, the need for the handicap spot is removed.
They had 7 spaces.
The previous business.
And that spot was non-conforming, there's a 6-inch threshold in the building.
Could you repeat that, please? I'm hard of
The current spot is non-conforming, so it's not compliant.
The one
Elevation
that's
change.
on the far right next to the Phoenix building is non-conforming, or the one outside the access door?
The one outside the access door, there's
Well-
a 6-inch threshold in the building.
Another clarification then. That spot outside the emergency exit door was never relied on by either site plan as a parking spot, handicapped or otherwise. All of the approvals relied on parking on their own lots.
Okay,
When Mr. Fitzsimmons applied, there was a parking plan. When Starbucks applied, there was a parking plan. And neither one of them used the spot outside the door.
okay.
Is that right? I mean, we've looked at all the maps.
No, it's like in your site plan, it's not in your site plan. It's referenced as an HC, shared HC spot.
Yeah, but it's not a condition of the approval.
Correct.
Right.
And that's true for either property
Right.
with prior
Was
businesses.
never relied on as any
Okay.
kind of parking
I
spot.
have one more kind of comment just to clarify, because they're looking at timeframes to clarify something. In the planning board, talking to the planning board, they have a right on the 25th to approve the site plan contingent on the special use permit. It's in our code.
Okay.
It would make, if by some chance you down the special use permit, the site plan becomes null and void.
Yeah, okay.
In our code.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I apologize.
No, it's all right. I didn't want Charlie or anybody to be scared here saying, oh, now they gotta wait to go into May to get, come back to this board for a special use permit. Or go back to the planning board in May to get site plan. They can get site plan approval contingent on special use permit. On the 25th, then you would have your meeting or public hearing on the 27th.
Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Dave, okay. What are you thinking?
I am, no, you can tell I didn't hang up on something.
Yeah.
And it's the concept of handicap accessibility to a business. And if it's required, I don't want to be arbitrary in our decision-making here. In my recollection, I understand I'm going from memory here. Anytime we look at a special use permit where there was parking involved, that was part of the process, is handicapped accessibility.
Correct, but there is no parking requirement after the variance. The board has granted them a 0 parking variance.
And that's where I'm hung up, okay.
This would be like looking at Thirsties or Hungry's or any other business that doesn't have parking right there. Fatouche. I mean, all these businesses do not have handicap access. They are, I mean, you can.
Yeah, they're in one district over.
Correct. Now, if we were building this brand new and it required parking, he'd have to require a handicap space or access.
So to clarify, because of the change that the Planning and Zoning Board made by variance, it removes the requirement for handicapped accessibility.
Correct.
For handicap parking, not accessibility.
Handicap parking, not accessibility.
Not accessibility, there's still
So it's still
Okay,
accessible.
got it.
So-
I understand,
yeah,
the
so
ramp.
This here is the handicap ramp. And
Right.
We're actually making a significant investment
I
to
understand.
improve handicap accessibility to the property.
All right, so the question would be, where handicap, we always have personal reasons why we get hung up on certain aspects. And when you have friends that, like I do, that depend on this, you get sensitive to the issue. And so I'm wondering, where a parking would occur so the person in a wheelchair could come out and then access your business, where my question is, why wouldn't you want to make it as accessible to everyone? Why would you eliminate a certain portion of the population and not have access to your business?
So first of all, it's not intentional to eliminate anyone. We're making the investment in handicap accessibility because we want to be attractive to them. There are other places they can park along, for instance, on Main Street. There's places to park and access the sidewalk and come around. You can park in the village lot and cross at the sidewalk. Now, clearly, it is a distance. One thing that might be considered down the road is a curb cut and putting a handicap spot right in front of the building. The problem is, we researched it, and it requires, first of all, it's very close to the intersection,
Yes.
and it requires an enormous amount of time with DOT. And we think that that is a multi-month plan, and I'm not prepared to go down that path. So, but I will tell you in good faith that that's something that we believe is a good thing to pursue. What I would love to do down the road is pursue both a handicap space and a crosswalk right in front of the Village Bakery property to give access to both the Village Bakery and the Cycle Cafe.
Yes. Village has tried that. We
Yeah,
did.
down that path.
We're working on that
Yeah.
without much success.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah,
A
Dave,
couple of
sure.
questions,
Mhm.
hopefully it's still on topic. So the first one is the delineation between your property and the back tenant property, the bakery's property. Where is that perpendicular line coming from the building? Is it coming behind or in front of the door and where it opens?
It's to the south.
To the south, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's try that again.
Oh, no problem.
So.
Here's the door.
Yeah, so we've actually reduced the amount of disturbance to be flush with the
So now it's up here.
northeast corner. Yep, so your property line is here.
Okay, I found this on the web, for is it coming behind or in front of the door? And where it opens?
We have a new
Sorry.
participant.
We're figuring this stuff out soon. All right, so this property line that you're referencing here, this larger square is part
Correct.
of your property
Exactly right.
to the front tenant. From the design, it looks like.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Hang on, we gotta mute that. All right, hey Siri,
Sorry, I'm
stop.
still not sure about that.
Here, that's why I use papers, they don't talk back to me.
Hey Siri, stop.
Sorry, I can't do that.
Not on the MacBook. iPhone can.
Boy, Siri has an edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's snarky.
Hang on, right. She just wants to keep going. Sorry about that, everybody.
I got it.
Should be able to function in a speaker and shut it down.
This is actually the verified survey buyer.
Turn the volume.
Survey.
We did that. Okay. Sure, that's easier. All right, so the reason why I was asking the question, this new drawing seems to put the fence tighter into the property, is that right? Parallel with the
Yep,
front
we moved it
line.
north.
So then some amount of this, according to this image, are you suggesting that part of this sidewalk is in fact on the front tenant's property?
Could you repeat that question?
Yeah, so this sidewalk cuts through both properties.
Correct.
This section of it happens to be to the front tenant.
Correct,
Is that correct? Okay.
but we're being respectful of that and showing our improvements on the inside of that walkway,
Okay.
so traffic is not deterred.
The next comment is you have an exit or egress or whatever onto this property by the gap in this fence. As well, your back door, the safety of it, allowing it to open and open to the open space here. Both of those, though, are onto the back tenant's property. Is that correct?
Not fully correct. We have two slider gates, so that essentially trash enclosure will be fully accessible. We have a 4-foot width in between. So yeah, we can keep those open or closed.
On
We're
both
just-
sides?
On both sides, so that's a clear pass through.
Okay.
Yep.
This would be onto the front tenant. Is that correct?
Correct,
Some
yep,
here
so
would
the-
be onto, or to the back tenant.
Incorrect. So yeah, your accessible would be, it's actually probably a little easier to read the plan. So we're talking about this area, so
Yeah.
you would actually take a left. So all of our.
But this gap here would come onto the back tenants.
Correct, that is open.
Yeah, so this openness walks onto their property, but it's not part of the safety plan or exit
Correct.
egress.
Correct, it's not the primary route.
Not the primary route.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking that question is likewise with you putting up the fencing structures, if the back tenant were to choose to do the same, how does that impede the flow of traffic in an emergency situation, as you'd referenced the importance of the safety coming out of that back door? My concern being, if you were to hypothetically place a fence here and then place a fence from the back property tenant their own fence around their property to the back, does it actually restrict the exit that you're intending to maintain from that back door?
Well, if you look at the cutout, so you see there's this bump out?
Yep.
And so the red walkway, so you come out of our door.
Okay.
When you walk on that red walkway, you're theoretically, still, well, up until the edge of the fence, you're still on Reynolds property.
So this property here, if I were to draw this, there's a part here that is
That's
on your
right.
property. Are you suggesting as well, coming from this door onto that, there's also, so essentially there's a spot here that if a fence were to be put up on the back tenant's property, there still is a direct access.
Exactly.
All the way up until roughly this moment.
Right here. But as we just discussed, it's unlikely that that's going to be there because I understand that this board can't approve it like that. So we will eliminate all fence structures from there in order to get approval.
Yep. Thank you. I think I understood your comment.
It's easy.
Okay. So, any other thoughts here or comments? Because really what's before us is, does this board want to take this to public hearing? Are we satisfied with where this is going to the extent that you're going back to the planning and zoning board essentially to satisfy their conditions? And if they're not satisfied, then no hearing. Jeff, what were you thinking? Look.
Nothing. I was thinking something, but not pertinent.
Not pertinent, okay.
So there's actually a couple hurdles we have to get through. We do have a meeting with the Historic Preservation Board on Monday. So that, when we went to the Historic Preservation Board previously, that was for information only. So we're actually going for approval on Monday, and Ryan will be representing us at that meeting. Then we have the planning board.
1 second.
Can't get HPV approval on Monday until all the other approvals are done.
Okay, so that's subject to?
No, we will not do a subject to. You've got to get all the approvals, and then we can give you a CMA. The HPV always goes last. There's a clerk certification on the application that all other zoning approvals are needed, and the site plan and special permit are in the zoning code.
Okay.
That's the deal.
The process.
Is it possible to ask the Historic Preservation Board for a special meeting?
It's always possible, yeah. And I don't mean that lightly. I think they certainly would. I'm sure they will consider it very seriously.
Okay. Were there any comments online?
No comments online.
Okay. Yes, and I know, Charlie, thank you for waiting. I know. Please state your name,
Charlie Fitzsimmons, I own 5 State Street in Village Bakery in Georgia. I just wanted to start off saying I've been neighbors with Mike Reynolds, and there is, obviously, we're all getting very familiar with the shared services and the deed, and we've worked together. I've used his extra handicap parking spot, and I would let him use the garbage. And it's gotten along pretty well so far. His patrons would park in my spot and it'd be okay. So I guess the main thing that I have is I don't understand how someone can just come in, and that approved spot that we're talking about that we used was the one out front, close to the Phoenix building. And that's actually when I got my special permit. I had to add that into my parking field just to be able to get enough seats.
Which space, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Which space are you referring to?
Well, do you have a site plan?
There's a survey.
Here. Yeah, so this was the approved handicap parking spot that we would share with Reynolds. And then we would let Reynolds, so it's next to the Phoenix building. Because
the one on the far end, right,
yeah,
on the
because it
parking.
could be used. It was
Yeah, it was the one on the far end.
handicap
Everybody
parking
understand it,
spot.
closest to the Phoenix building. Yeah.
Which was,
That's the one I was.
that was the spirit of the agreement. We used that handicap parking spot here because actually someone handicapped could get out and use it.
Understand.
The one that they tried to use was right in front of the door. So previous village government wouldn't approve this parking spot because they needed a second means of egress by fire code. So you couldn't park a car in front of their door. So they had to move it over here, and that's just kind of the way it's been. So we've used that spot, and then in turn, we would let them drag their garbage and leave the whole garbage corral a mess, and it's fine, we got along, it was sort of neighbors. And we had an understanding. Now, I think the main bone I had to pick is, to get my approval, I had to, obviously satisfy so many parking requirements. And I'm very sensitive to protect my parking, which is undoubtedly going to be used. We all know, we can all admit, your people are going to try to park in our parking spot. Your bikers are going to drive right into my parking spot. That's one thing. So if you're going to waive, I don't understand how you can just waive that agreement, and that's sort of what I'm finding.
Please understand, this was not an action taken by our board.
No, Planning and Zoning Board.
Yeah, Planning and Zoning Board.
And then
So we're not involved in that action regarding what another independent board did. Okay, so what's before us tonight on the agenda is just whether or not, if there's certain conditions that we would even move the special use permit, okay, to public hearing. That's all that's before us this evening.
I just don't know any of the drawings, so I'm here to, defend my business in the spots. And then they're changing it and presenting it, and I don't know. So and if people are going to, a competitor is going to plan on exiting all his people into my park and into my property, it's not going to happen. So I just want to make sure they know if there's any sort of assumptions made on the site plan, and I don't know if that's something we move forward. I have to be able to, I would think, take a look at it and understand what it exactly is they're proposing.
And that's the planning board meeting
That's planning board.
on the 25th.
Yeah, 25th is planning board.
That's the planning board meeting on the 25th. Yeah.
So we have we have a different task before us tonight that isn't about what the planning board did or didn't do. What our task probably is at this point is whether or not we would go to public hearing if certain conditions were met.
I think once you get an application, if the application's complete,
We would,
you have to go to public.
Yeah, we do.
You
You're
don't have
right.
a choice.
but with certain,
Right, so,
Yeah.
Mr. Fitzsimmons, I would just make a couple comments on your comments. First of all, this space was not in existence in 1990. All of the mapping and all of the approvals indicate whether this was a legal space or not. This one was what was referenced in the easement. But, that being said, sorry?
But isn't there sort of some precedent set? Was there a
That's
big double dumpster in 1990?
I don't want to be, I'm not being a smart guy.
Yeah.
That's a judge's job.
yeah.
That's a judge's job. This board, I'm trying to advise to hold the property rights that existed pursuant to the deed in 1990. And that's how I see the use going. Whether or not you've got some kind of adverse easement over here, that's a judge's job. Whether or not that's no good because this is no good, judge's job.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
And
we
that's
have a
not,
purview here.
that's not a judge's job, that's between you and the village. It's a judge's job between you and the front property owner.
And I do recognize that.
Okay.
That's where we're prepared to go. I just want to make sure it doesn't get too far forward, but I want to let you know that that's.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and thanks for your input. Okay. All right, any other comments? Yes,
We have 2 public comments.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Caraveras, you're able to speak.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Peggy.
Hi. I have just a couple of comments as a former trustee. I'm in observation of a few things that are going on right now with this application. One of my questions is this a restaurant? is this the Cycle Cafe? Is this a restaurant?
Yes, we are going to serve food. We're going to be open on most days, not all days, but most days from 7 to 3. We intend to serve coffee and lunch food. In our background document that is posted to the village website for this meeting, we
Yes.
actually have photos of what the type of food is that we're going to be serving.
Okay. And I haven't seen the interior. How many seats are going to be inside the facility?
We've brought our proposed interior today because that was a question that was presented to us the last time we met. It's going to have room for 50 patrons.
Oh, it's 50, less than.
50 patrons, okay. And what, 4 or 5 employees?
That's correct.
I'm just trying to calculate. I also understand that the ZBA approved no parking for your business. I'm not sure exactly what their findings were because I haven't seen the complete video, and I don't know if they issued findings at that point. I'm speaking now to the trustees. This brings up a concern that I had a while ago in terms of the planning board also being the zoning board of appeals, the same people functioning in both capacities. As you look at your organizational meeting and as you look at your codes, actually our code separates the planning board from the ZBA, but we've had this, this combined committee for a long time. To me, there's a conflict presented by the same people planning and then giving a variance to an applicant that they perhaps really would like to see in the village. And I'm not making any judgment on this, but I'm just saying there seems to be a conflict of interest, and I really don't understand how they can diminish all the parking spaces. I don't know. I don't understand the legalities of them being able to eliminate parking to a restaurant. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Thanks for your input on that. And you said there was another comment? Yes. Okay.
Mr. Reynolds, you're able to speak.
Which Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, which one?
Mike Reynolds.
When I get the address, maybe I will know.
Mike Reynolds, 5 State Street.
Okay, property owner? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Hi, Mike.
Hi, yep, hi, it's Mike Reynolds here, owner of the front parcel. Just a quick comment that, we've never consented to the Phoenix parking spot being a shared handicap parking spot. When that was created in 1990, the entire parking area of this entire property, ours and the Village Bakeries, was one continuous parking area. There were no chains, there was no sidewalk. And so it was designated by the two parties that 16 by 20 area on the side is what would be the handicap spot. So the saying that the spot adjacent to the Phoenix building is a handicap spot was, we had never ever consented to that, or the first we'd ever heard of it, and believe that's the case with our tenants who wouldn't have signed off on that anyway. So that's only comment I want to make.
Thank you for your input. Are there any other comments online, Dorothea?
No, I do not have any more comments.
Okay. I'll bring him. Is there anybody wishing to speak in the, okay. Anybody else here? Okay. Is there a motion? Crickets. Well, they're here to, as you said, they're asking to go to a public hearing.
And
Yeah,
I think it's this board's obligation to fulfill the requirements of the code and have a public hearing.
yeah.
The presumption is not that you're going to grant it. The presumption is that you're going to hear it, and hear from the public, and hear from any interested person on it.
Right.
So I think it's incumbent on this board to have a public hearing.
Yeah, it's bringing it back into the public arena for comment.
Well, it's a requirement of the code.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
agree. I'll go ahead and make the motion. Dorothea, could you provide me with a date, please?
April 27th at 7 p.m.
April 27th, 7 p.m. Okay, let me just pull up the.
What do you need?
I will, April 27th at 7 p.m. I'll make a motion that we move the application for La Fabrica to public hearing on April 27th at 7 p.m.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for everybody's input.
Thank you.
Okay, next, well, it's definitely after 7, so we can go ahead with our public hearings. The first public hearing up this evening is the town park that is proposed on North Main Street. And that is where, everybody knows where Harley J. Hops traditionally sets up. And it is open space that is adjacent to the driveway entrance to the town parking lot. No one's here from the town. Hello. Okay. Yeah, just see if anybody, I don't think so. I think it's just-
Motion to go to the public hearing?
Okay, we have a motion
I'll
from.
make a motion to open the public hearing on the town proposed town park.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, thank you. Roll call.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. And the public hearing is open. Is there, can you please talk outside, please? Thank you.
He has some extra paper he left us or something.
I think they're bad.
Those are extra.
I don't know. You can hang on to them.
Okay,
We'll hang on to them. They'll be part of the record.
okay.
Okay. Okay, the public hearing is open. Is there anybody wishing to speak on this matter? Is there anybody online for this particular
I'm looking. I
item?
have nothing at this time.
Okay. One more, few more seconds.
Okay. Having received no public input, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, so this item is back to the board. Do we have comment from the board
Regarding the public hearing,
regarding the
the 9 points.
yes.
Right.
Do we need to go over point by point?
I believe we do.
Yeah.
And I think that, I would just like to comment, first of all, that if anyone is looking to follow along here, unfortunately, the plans were not included with this meeting packet, but you can find them on the website for the March 22nd meeting that we held, which is the public input for the town park. All of the plans are there. And the nature of this meeting here is to decide if we wish to enforce our zoning code as it pertains to this project. And there are 9 different factors that we go through to determine which side we will fall on as it relates to enforcing the zoning code. And so then, without further ado, if there are no questions about the application in front of us, I'll just go through, starting with the first one.
Just
Can you hang on a minute?
So the weight that the board gives to each one is not mandated. I mean, you could weigh one more heavily than another.
Right.
One would have maybe more meaning to the board in terms of a yes or no.
And so that's where the balancing comes in, as we say, right? Am I correct? 'Cause we, for anybody who's also watching online, we did this also when the town proposed the pavilion. So if anybody had zoomed in on that one.
This is becoming a regular habit of this board to go through this test, so.
Yep.
Anyway.
It's a good habit.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And especially as we get to more impactful projects, I think it's always good to build strong habits to reinforce the decisions we make. So the first one then, the nature and scope of the instrumentality seeking immunity. And in this case, I believe it would be the town that is believing it is not subject to our zoning code. Any comment on this item?
I don't have any particular comment on this item, because I should have brought that sheet the other, where the municipality can supersede. I'm thinking.
Well, you're thinking.
I know, go ahead.
Maybe I can just go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, no, just keep going.
The town and the village do have a strong collaborative relationship,
Yep.
and I believe that as the town has an interest in the village, to me, this is a positive factor for the town to proceed with the project.
I would agree with that, and also I think if you live in the town, this is your village, and villagers also enjoy the town, so I think there is that sense of community that exceeds just village borders, that extends into the town. Okay.
The second item is the encroaching government's legislative grant of authority, and the encroaching government, the terminology used here, that would also be the town. And of course, the town has their own zoning codes. The village has the zoning codes that would generally have jurisdiction in this area to most businesses and residences within the municipal boundary. I don't have much else to add to this one.
Okay. Nope. We're moving along. Number 3.
The kind or function of land use involved, and this is the construction of a park, as depicted in the March 22nd meeting packet.
And also, it's a park for public use and for enjoyment, not only for town residents, but visitors and villagers. Yep.
And that kind of blends in. I've got a comment about the next one, the effect local land use regulation would have upon the enterprise concerned. Now, a park, I'm just curious now that I'm thinking about it, is that a permitted use in the district? Does anybody happen to, since we're going through this, I can look it up too.
Yeah.
That's VCD, right?
Yeah. Can you look up the zone map and
Let's be sure it's VCD first.
Justin, if I may, just bounce back to number 2.
Yep.
So the encroaching government's legislative grant of authority. In this instance, they don't have the grant of authority. We recognize that, but move on to number 3 anyway.
That the encroaching government does not have the, they are not the zoning authority in this. Now,
right. There's no implicit grant of authority.
Yes, it's based on the idea of the limited immunity is that based on the results of this balancing test, we may choose to enforce our zoning on the encroaching municipality.
But it's important to recognize that they don't have the legislative authority in this instance, but rather it's just something to recognize, and we move on.
I'm not finding anything that would indicate that it is. Well, it's a municipal building or use, it's certainly that.
Seems rather consistent with what we've done in this land for a while.
Yeah, I think it qualifies as municipal building.
Okay. Yep. Okay, great. So then in that case, the most obvious land use regulation would say that this is permitted use as a municipal use in the district. Any other comments on 4? Should we move to 5?
No, I'm good on 4.
Number 5, alternative locations for this facility in less restrictive zoning areas. Well, this is not really a restrictive zoning area as far as this is concerned because it's permitted municipal use. Anything else? Okay, moving on to 6, the impact upon legitimate local interests. I think this would be positive since it's a park.
I agree.
Number 7, then, alternative methods for providing the proposed improvement.
That was the design.
Triangular space.
Take a little more parks.
Yes, yeah.
I think I would interpret this as we really aren't any alternatives because it's the town's money and
Yeah.
we're going to come up with the funds to do it if they don't.
That's a good point. So this is, I agree with that.
So there are no alternative methods based on this project.
Not, I mean, reasonable.
Yeah,
Intergovernmental participation in the project development process and an opportunity to be heard. I had mentioned the March 22nd meeting, which was a presentation that the town did. Well, it was not a formal meeting of the village board. There was an opportunity for village residents to weigh in.
and also, I think the town held, I think it was 2 other presentations at Town Hall, just within our village, where villagers could attend as well, in addition to town residents.
Moving on to number 9, the extent of the public interest to be served by the improvements. We've touched on this one, Mr. Park.
In Crow Park.
Any other comments to wrap this up, or having weighed the 9 factors, then I will make a motion that the encroaching municipality shall not be subjected to our zoning regulations.
Okay, we have a motion before us. Is there a second, please?
No, second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
No, that was good. That was good for us to do. I think that's important. Okay.
We need a couple minutes to set up.
If you can just get the power.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Can we take a 5?
Yeah, why don't we do I'll make a motion to adjourn for, do you need 5 minutes or 10?
Not even just a few minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. So just take the up second. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, yep, everybody, we'll have the 7th inning stretch.
And we probably want to sit over here.
Yeah, exactly, if we can, just so this will. I make a motion to call the meeting back to order. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev. Trustee Marshall. Trustee Lanfair. Okay, gotcha. Mayor Plummer. Aye. Motion passes.
Okay, we're back. So next up is our 2023-2024 budget presentation and hearing. So if we could start in, please, with our first slide and look at who's taking care of the village, and so we can't say blocking it. Of course, I didn't get the memo about pink that day, so, but there's a new board of trustees. And in terms of, next slide, please, who's taking care of the village? I always say we have our fine team at Village Hall who help us run the village every single day. And next slide, please. Also, our ambassadors in orange, our DPW. I say, as trustees, we show up, but the DPW in the Village Hall really runs the village, because they're here every single day on behalf of our community, doing good work. So thank you for that. Okay. Next up, let's take a look at really how our village is run when we take a look at the budget. And this year, really for the first time, we have significant changes that we think that are more accurately reflect how the money is being used in our budget, and also it's more transparent for our taxpayers looking at the budget. And so it helps us to look at really where the money's going. So what are we doing differently? Well, we're expanding the categories literally in the budget, and I know Brooklyn and Dorothea have been working over the past several months, really, along with staff to take lines that have had a lot of consolidated items and expanded those lines, really to break out so we can accurately see where the money's going. So the other thing that we're looking at, and I think this is really an important step for our village, again, in terms of transparency for our taxpayers and also to see the flow of money going in and out. We have looked at sewer fund allocations, and so for the first time now, we are looking at the sewer fund really in its entirety as a separate department within our village. And so We'll get into a little more depth on this as we go forward. But let's look at the projects that can be funded within this budget. And as you can see, a lot of it is our DPW. They're really the heart of the village. They take care of all of our infrastructure on a daily basis. So right now in our budget, we are doing finally a replacement of a truck 14, that's a 1-ton dump truck. And Zach, as I understand, is at the end of his lifespan.
Correct. It's a 2015 450 dump truck that we put through the paces. It's beat up at this point, and it would be a good time to replace it. Doing so now might probably bring us the best piece of it.
And that's an important point that Zach just made. It's not just sort of getting rid of a dump truck and replacing it. We look at the timing and the cycle of how our equipment is aging out to get the best sort of resale in the auction market. So we recoup some of the costs from essentially the used equipment to be put back in to purchase new equipment. So there's a timing issue. And again, in our budget, we have a milling and paving of Line Street. This was identified several years ago. It's a small project. It's very doable. It's on the schedule. And again, we have a project, the retaining wall rebuild on Elm Street. This was a project that was identified approximately 4 years ago. I think it was 4 years roughly. Yep. And this is where we have a beautiful old street tree, a large tree that the roots have really compromised this entire wall. And it's up to us to shore that up and make sure that, again, it's safe on that street. We also have DPW radio system updates. This is very old technology that our crew is using, and this really is an opportunity to upgrade the technology. The crew will use to have a much more efficient technique to communicate with each other for safety reasons, mostly throughout the village. The Bobcat player attachment. Now this is sexy. But it's important because we have shared services with the town. We collaborate between our DPW departments. And traditionally, this attachment, we borrow it from the town. Well, the town has 29,000 people roughly, and we have 1,100. So we're kind of on the last of the list sometimes to get that planer. And so what this does is it defers projects and jobs, if I'm correct, throughout the village, because we're waiting when they're done with their projects. And so by purchasing this specific piece of equipment, this really allows us to really complete projects for our village on a more timely basis. Okay. We have 2 furnaces at the DPW shop that probably should be in the Smithsonian. They have been with the DPW building evidently from the time the building was built. So these furnaces go back decades. It is old technology. This is an opportunity to upgrade to more efficient heating technology, and this also is helpful for us in terms of our green infrastructure initiative. So that's a good thing. And with that too, we are looking at a new HVAC system for Village Hall. We have a very old, 30-year-old, roughly, oil-burning furnace. I hate to say that, but we do. We have an old gas furnace. So again, this is an opportunity for us to use best practices, upgrade to potentially a geothermal or possibly a heat pump system. We're really looking into that. And thank you, Steve. I know you've been getting the information on that. And these last 2 projects really tie into the fact that we have become a climate smart community. So by following up on some of these technologies that are more sustainable, we accrue points within this program. And what's great about it, the more points we accrue, we get direct grant funding, where there are no matching grants. We just get the direct funding, and it's with the understanding that we take this funding and put it right back into additional green initiatives throughout our village. So with that in mind, let's take a look at projects that didn't make it into the budget due to the lack of funding. So we had to leave out an electric pickup truck, and it's that Ford F-150 Lightning. I know people have been hearing about that. We do want to eventually convert over time to an electric fleet, and with that in mind, put in EV chargers as well. Unfortunately, we have a very large 20-year-old dump truck, and we would like to replace it. It's pretty much past its lifespan, life cycle, as I recall. But we will not be able to do anything with that at this point. I would like to talk about our village hall. This is the people's house. This is a wonderful asset in our community. And we have a number of village hall restorations and updates, and I know some of this has been brought to the board before. We have windows that need to be properly restored. I believe we did have a bid on that this past year. It was around $56,000 to redo the windows. We also have beautiful marble front porch tiles that need to be repaired and properly reset. We also have the pillars on our front porch. Around the base of our pillars, we have significant rotting, particularly on one of them. Steve has followed up and pointed that out. We need to do some painting on our building. Our wrought iron railings across the front of the building are deteriorating and they need to have complete restoration. And that also includes what we call the balconettes. When you face the front of the building, there are little tiny balconies that are sort of in front of my office out there. So most of these items have been identified in a report that was done by Bureau Architecture. They're a noted preservation architectural firm within this region. And we have a report that they did identifying some of these issues with our building that they put out 22 years ago. And so, as you know, we're going for additional grant funding now to get an update on that report. And I think we're going to find some of the same issues that were identified back then. Also, what did not make it into the budget is, again, some office equipment that's required for Village Hall and DPW. We do engaging technology with our computers and some of our actual furniture, our desks and such. And again, we are deferring, again, necessary Village Road projects, and Shane Place and Sutherland Street are big arteries for us. They both get a lot of heavy traffic, particularly Sutherland with the buses. Shane Place over the last several years, because of those two bridge rehabilitations from NISTOT, all the traffic has been redirected down Shane Place, so it really has accelerated the deterioration along Shane Place, and so that's something we really would like to get back into the budget. And also, we also need to bring our sidewalks up to compliance, ADA compliance, and that's something that should be ongoing, and that is not made into the budget. So there actually is a cost of waiting, and just a couple of projects that we just want to talk about. One is there are projects that we have been identified from maybe 3 years ago, 6 years ago, and the costs associated with those projects have almost doubled. We are in a completely different economic environment now, and the two examples that we're giving, and these are very recent because we put these out to bid, so this is sort of real-time information for our residents. We are trying to repair our back stairs exit out of Village Hall, and we did receive about 6 years ago a $100,000 grant to do this. And that would have covered the entire cost of the project at the time. It was not acted on, and so we reclaimed actually the funds, the $100,000 from it's called the dormitory, or the keepers of grant funding for the state, and we put it back out to bid within the last 6 months, 5 months.
We started bidding that back out in December.
Yeah, December.
We actually did 2 bid processes with that. The second bid, we were able to receive 2 bidders.
Right, okay, yeah, there was an issue with even getting people to respond to bids. So what started out as a $100,000 project that would have been taken care of with grant funding now is up to $218,000 today. And that would mean that we would have to provide the additional $118,000 to complete this project. And again, you see sort of the same situation again with South Street. This project was identified 6 years ago. In terms of a redo, back then the engineering costs, you can see right here on the slide, it's actually more than double now in terms of what we've got when we start to bid. And again, the road work, once the engineering is done, is definitely double, more than double on that. So there is a cost to waiting right now. So let's take a look at really the total picture of what each household pays in the village in terms of taxes. Where do the tax dollars go when you pay your taxes? So when you're looking at this lovely pie chart, what you see out of every dollar spent on taxes, 10% or 10 cents of the dollar is village taxes, goes to running our village. And as you also can see, out of the 90%, that's the remainder that goes to the town or the school, the county, approximately 60% does go to our school district. Of course, we all know we have a great school system. Sutherland Bradford, just saying. So let's take a look at what we're trying to accomplish. And welcome to our world. We really do have lots to do in the village. What you're seeing now is the whiteboard that is in my office, and the staff, everybody has access to this board. We take a look at projects, what needs to be added, where are we in terms of tracking these things. But as you can see, we certainly have a lot of moving parts in our village. So with that in mind, let's really take a look at sort of our current and our future budget challenges. And so really the current conditions, the top three, and most of you are all aware of this, you're all feeling the same things that we are as a village, individually and with your households. So we're aware of the current economic climate. You know, you've got to fill your gas tank, go to buy groceries, everything's really increased quite a bit. Well, for our village, we have all kinds of increased costs with equipment, supplies have gone way up, labor costs, everything has gone up. And again, securing contractors and getting responses to our RFPs have been really difficult for us. And one of the things, because we are so small, we're 1,100 residents, we're a small municipality, putting things out to bid in an environment as competitive as this right now, we've had RFPs out there, we've never even gotten responses because we're small. You know, our projects are smaller, and what we're seeing is, you know, a lot of the contractors are kind of going for the big stuff, larger municipalities. So that's, again, the environment that we're in right now. And with that in mind, let's take a look at funding our reserves. What does that look like? Because reserves for us are just the way we all say for the rainy day. We want to stock away a little bit of money for certain circumstances. So that's been difficult. And even before the downturn in the economy, the general reserves really haven't been funded, I think, for a few years here, certainly. So that is a consideration as well, and a challenge for us as a village. In terms of the challenge for us in the future, really our challenge, I think, as a board, is how do we provide services to our residents while limiting the tax burden? So let's take a look. We're going with that. So there's a couple things that we're doing that I just want to touch base on quickly. We do have community outreach and cost-saving measures, and we certainly look for work that can be completed in-house instead of sending things out, you know, to bid or for repairs. And Zach, you may want to speak to that. You do a lot of repairs in-house actually on equipment. Yeah, rather than sending it out, and we have people that are really dedicated to that.
Yeah, the hourly rate for us to fix our equipment is a lot less than it would be to send it out, which is usually upward of $120.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. And then also, some of you may remember, there was an audit from the RG&E billing to the village that was conducted 6 years ago, roughly. Yeah, and that was really significant for our village. And what we did was we hired an outside firm, and what they do is they review the billing. And can you believe there's many errors from RG&E in a bill? Yeah, and so I think the last time we got about $100,000 back to the village that was reclaimed because of the billing errors with RG&E. So we intend to initiate that process again. Because again, it's been 6 years and it's definitely worth doing. And then really what happens with the firm, they take a small fee, or not a small, but a fee, a portion of that, whatever is recovered for the village. It is still worth it because we simply do not have the staff at the time to pursue something like that in such depth. Again, cost saving measures, updating our streetlights to LEDs, always trying to lower energy costs, doing things that are more sustainable. Again, this is appropriate for us as a climate smart community. It's a good thing to do. And again, additional sustainability projects, this HVAC at the Village Hall, hopefully migrating to electric vehicles and putting in EV chargers, one down at DPW. We also would like to put one in behind Village Hall for public use. Those are two good locations. And also, we're pleased to have some local partnerships to assist with native plantings and invasive removals. So I'd like to thank our friends at the Arboretum. They've really been doing a great job, and we're excited to keep working with you. Also, I'd like to thank the Scout troops who worked with the village last fall and planted 1,300 early pollinator bulbs throughout the village. And I think we're seeing the fruits of their labor. Some of the bulbs are coming up. So that's a really, really great thing as well. And as part of our Village in Bloom program, which is also another portion of our sustainability initiative, to plant more native plants and pollinator and butterfly corridors throughout our village. So we do have other forms of funding coming into the village. We're all familiar with the ARPA funds. We did receive $137,000 in ARPA funding. What you're seeing here are some of the ARPA-approved funded projects. These are all things that are great, that need to be done, and we're glad to have the ARPA funds to do so. And again, because we're small and we do want to ultimately do capital improvement projects, we need to look at other funding sources. So we obviously are looking at grants, whether they're matching grants or grants that are fully funded, because as we know, every dollar that we get from a grant is one less dollar spent by our taxpayers. And that means we go to bands or bonds. Band is essentially a short-term note, and this will help us move forward on our capital improvement projects. And the good news is this is the stuff we want to do. This is really reinvesting in our village. This is really taking care of our infrastructure and the larger needs of our community. So moving on here now, let's take a look at reserves. And this is something, and maybe Dorothea, you can jump in on this as well, because this has really been a lot of work that this board has been doing. We have reserves in our village going back roughly to the 70s, like 50 years ago, through the 80s, that really we have not been able to access the funds, because when reserves are set up, the language attributed to that reserve, the specific language that enables the Board of Trustees to access the funds. Unfortunately, some of the establishing language used years ago for 4 of our reserves was done improperly. And so, in the sewer department, actually, especially, wasn't it?
Yes, there's a good portion there, and
Portion of sewer,
one for general.
And one for general, right. So what does this mean for us? You couldn't access the funds because the language was so unclear or not understandable that we couldn't access that money. And so this is a big project for us, and we're glad to be rectifying the situation. It's tied up over decades, roughly almost $500,000 of taxpayer funds. So really what we're doing now is we're repurposing these funds. We're correcting the language so we can move forward. And so really what you're seeing here, we'll just start very quickly at the top. The sewer reserves, we're really in great shape here. These are all pretty much fully funded, really. I will just call your attention very quickly to the catastrophic reserve at the bottom. This was just set up this past year by the Board of Trustees, and this was initiated by our DPW because we have 3 siphons that run underneath the canal, and those siphons carry sewage from one side to the other. And the concern would be, what if the siphon breaks? Well, now we have a reserve to at least help us if the siphon breaks. And people always ask the question, what if all 3 break? And I say, we call FEMA. But we at least have a reserve set up so we can address this if ever were to become an issue. Let's see, we also have newly established reserves, again, under sewer, as you can see. And when you drop down to general reserves, this is really more of an area of concern for us because there's less funding really for these reserves. Jump in at any time, but I just want to say that the reserve that you're seeing, the repair reserve allocation, this was a reserve that we could not access. And this was about $160,000. Correct. Because the language was so vague, we couldn't get the money out of the reserve. So what we're doing now as a board, and we will adopt the language, our attorney's working on this. And what we will do is essentially, you're seeing these 5 reserves below. This will become essentially the seed money to set up to start funding these reserves that we feel will be important for our village. in the future. Because again, this is the rainy day fund, when something goes wrong, we know we have the reserves to take care of it.
And it does look like we're repeating ourselves, we kind of are. The reason is, it's two separate departments, so what sewer needs, they do need their own equipment reserve, as does the general fund. So that's why you're seeing, it looks like we're duplicating, we are, and that's intent.
Yeah, these are parallel departments, basically. Okay, so moving along here, let's just take a look at our general revenues. Again, this is pretty much how it always works out. We have two significant streams of revenues. We have property taxes and excess tax. And we're pretty much built out as a village, so this is kind of really where we are. We have fairly limited revenue streams in our village. Moving along, let's take a look at our general appropriations. And again, you're seeing significantly, obviously, our salary costs. And if you look at the yellow piece over there, that's transportation, that's primarily attributed to DPW. It really is the biggest amount, I would say, the most significant amount for our village, because DPW really takes care of all of the infrastructure in our village. And next up. Okay, so we have, now this is the separate department, so this is our sewer revenues, and this revenue is completely usage generated. And so what you're seeing here is the big blue piece of this is really all of the sewer rents that we collect from all of our residents here and also the counties. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of what happens with sewer. We always need sewer. Okay, and then just this slide is really different from past years. And again, it's what we referenced in the beginning, because now we're really taking a look at these costs for the first time, and it's reflecting the sewer costs as its own department in entirety. And again, this is a separate tax base, sewer, this is a separate tax base based on the general fund. And now the funds are really no longer commingled. So what this is in prior years, for example, money from the general fund would have been used perhaps to offset some of the expenses in the sewer fund. And so at this point, we really are implementing, I think, best practices in accordance with the state controller's legal policies, also with the advice from counsel of our municipal CPA, accounting firm, and also with our attorney. So this is, I think, really showing us again, the salaries that are going in. All of the things is if the sewer department could have been in a separate building. It's co-located, obviously, with us here because we're taking care of the general aspects of running the village, but also the sewers. So I think this gives us a much more transparent and clear view of where the money is going. So how we got here. And again, please jump in. Feel free to jump in on this, because this has really been sort of a fine tuning on the budget, how we're reallocating and establishing the separate departments, how this is going to look going forward, so it's clear to our residents. Again, our budget lines have been expanded, so we really see far more clearly and more specifically how money is being spent. And we just get a better view of where our money is going. And then to that end, there is a formula that has been derived, Dorothea has been working regarding how we figured out that separating out. So if you could speak to that just a little bit, I think it'd be helpful.
Absolutely. When we looked at the budget this year, actually, when I looked at the budget last year, this is something I did propose to the board, and not having really hard numbers, I wanted to take a deeper look, and the board at that time decided, let's look at this budget here. Mm-hmm. So with looking at it and finding the appropriate mechanism to determine the appropriation point for the sewer and their costs, we took an average of everybody's salary broken and how much time they spend in the sewer. So we had hard numbers to go by. And that average came to 22%. I ran that by our village CPA, I talked to our attorney, we also talked to the comptrollers, received guidance from them, and everybody has indicated that this is a strong formula to use.
Okay, so the 22%, and so you were talking also about some other municipalities, sometimes it's higher, it could be like a 50% split.
Sure, sometimes it's really what the board determines, they can determine, but what the comptrollers really want to see is what you're using to back up that number.
Right.
we have hard numbers to back up the number we're using. The great thing with using those numbers, it can be, this year is 22%, let's say there's a change, it can go up, it can go down. We're going to reflect and review that every year as we do budget. I want to say, thinking of that 22%, so you get a clear picture, if the sewer department had its own office, it would have to pay for its RG&E bill.
Right.
So what we allocate is 22% of the village RG&E bill goes towards sewer.
Right.
So same thing with computers, insurance. You know, there was a time they weren't even paying their own postage. So we really want to make sure those appropriations go to the right department.
Right. Right, and it brings greater clarity. So essentially the formula right now is the starting point for us going forward. And again, we can fine tune and bring greater clarity. So,
absolutely.
So with that in mind, let's take a look at the sales tax history at this point. And Dorothy, I know you'd like to speak to that. We were talking about this. She's so spot on in your estimates.
I got actually very lucky. When I was looking at last year's budget presentation, I looked at 3/4 of the estimate and the numbers I provided and came to a number. I was within $800 of our final total. I don't think I'll ever do that again, so please don't ask, but I hope to be close. Right now, with our current budget, we are short $120,000 going into our final check for this budget year. So I am guessing that we are going to meet our budget requirements, plus have a little surplus.
So how many times a year do we receive the?
We receive 4 checks a year.
Okay, just so everybody understands it. So, you know, we're kind of waiting on, you know.
Yeah, the final check actually comes, it's like June, but it's 4 quarters of this year.
It's for the close of our fiscal year.
Correct. So what I've done, looking at that, you would say, why did you estimate less sales tax revenue going into next year? Because I don't want to count my chickens before they come in. I don't think you should count on revenue that you might not receive. The state has changed some of the formulas for collecting of sales tax. They reduced sales tax on gasoline. And there's been other aspects. I think the county has made additional changes with sales tax or deferred things to try to help the taxpayers, which is great. We also don't know what consumer spending is going to look like. So I don't want to put us in a position where we overestimated in sales tax and then we're short and we can't meet revenue or appropriations.
So it's a significant revenue stream for our village, as you saw in the beginning of the presentation. But again, this is a more conservative estimate going forward.
And you'll find I'm often more conservative in my estimates.
Yes, okay. All right, so let's take a look then at our property tax history. And what you're looking at is the tax rate in blue, going up the bars. And then you're looking at the orange, if you can see that orange, or maybe it looks brown to you. That is the increase in taxes. So if you look at the 21 to 22 and 22 to 22, go back. That's okay, just real quick. You see that for the last 2 years, the board has kept taxes at a flat rate. We knew that we were in a difficult economic climate. We knew that people were feeling the pinch. So we did not have a tax increase. And then what you're seeing right now, going to the next slide, thank you. You're seeing now what we're proposing is about a 4.4% increase. That is below the cost of living, which I think is at 5%.
Correct, it came down from 6% in February to 5% in March.
So we just tried to take a look, just do a rough sort of estimate on basically an average village property assessment, which as you can see is roughly $360,000. And then we look at, the top line there, 22, 23, and see the difference between the proposed rates. So for a household that's basically around a $360,000 assessment, over the year you're looking at about a $65 tax increase with this proposed range. Okay. So what's next? Well, we still are in a sound fiscal position as a village. I really want to thank Dorothea and Brooklyn and Zach for all their hard work on this, really helping to put this together. I also want to thank Danielle Reeler for helping us with the presentation. She's one of our stars at DPW, along with all the other stars that are there. But What's next? We really want to keep investing in our village. We really want to move forward with the capital improvements that are needed for our village. Also, the weather is warming up, definitely. So we have all sorts of wonderful events coming up in our community, and I look forward to seeing everybody at all. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Yes.
Okay, we have just a couple minutes to shut down.
Okay, give us just a minute here. Talk amongst yourselves. Just need to power down. Well, I think so. I think we're back at the table. Should we turn this off?
It's going off.
It is going on, okay. Just because I think the mic's going to pick it up. Okay. Okay, we're good?
We're good.
Okay. Calling back to order, please. Okay, we just had our presentation.
So I'd say we open the public.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, make a motion to open the public hearing on the village budget. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Anybody online?
We did receive one comment online. We do have a hand raised. The comment was presentation is garbled and difficult to understand. Could speaker have a microphone in hand? Unfortunately, with our system, as everybody understands, I call it, we're MacGyvered. So we really don't have a microphone to speak into. It's a large microphone on the
It's
table.
an omnidirectional microphone.
But we will be posting the presentation so everybody can view it. And if there is questions, please give me a call at Village Hall. I'll be happy to answer anything that anybody has.
But I have good news. We have a meeting room upgrade in the budget.
Yes, we do.
So hopefully, yeah, right. Hopefully that'll make a big difference, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and I do have a speaker wishing to speak. Ms. Caraveras, you're able to speak?
Hi, nice presentation, Mayor. Nice presentation.
Oh, thanks, Peg. Hi.
Hi, a couple of questions. You say that the tax rate is going up 4.9%?
4.4 roughly?
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm trying to read in the dark here.
Oh.
And how much is the sewer rate going up?
We're increasing that by, typically it goes up roughly 10% every year, and I think we're adding on for this particular year another 5% to that for this year.
So it'll be a
total taxes are going up how much? That would be one of my questions. Another question is, how are we going to monitor this new budget?
the same way we monitor our current budget. There's no difference. I'm not sure the question.
Well, I mean, the way we're allocating percentages, I'm just curious how we're going to, month by month, how we're going to know
where
the money is.
Sure. When a bill comes in, it's reviewed. It'll be broken out to the appropriate departments. That bill is reviewed by a trustee and the department heads, and then it's reviewed by the full board. And then we make the payment.
And then, excuse me one second, Peg, but Dorothea, when you went through the controller's course, they were talking about moving into, what was it, dynamic?
More
accounting?
dynamic budgeting,
Dynamic
that's a
budgeting.
little different. That's how we view the budget.
Okay.
And how the allocations for revenues might affect a certain department, like sales tax might fund your village hall.
Okay.
It's really a different
It's a
breakdown.
different way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a different way of
Okay.
looking at the
'Cause I
budget.
remember you
But in
said-
this case scenario, it'll follow the standard protocols for procurement.
I think one of my questions then is, since the DPW takes such a huge part of our salary budget, how are we going to know if our 22% is the right measure?
DPW, with their salary, that's done a little bit differently. We actually measure that with the time they spend in that department. That's noted on their worksheets, and that's charged appropriately when we do the payroll.
Did you get that, Peg? They literally break out where their time is spent relative.
All right. And I noticed that there's a certain amount of trustee salary allocated to the budget, how to the sewer budget. How is that going to work?
Well, trustees, in their general course of their doing their duties, we estimated the general trustees to 10% of their time is spent on sewer matters, whether it's budget, approving the bills, talking about the funding of reserves. It's a starting point. I would have gone a little higher, but the board last year determined that they wanted to keep it at 10. The mayor spends a little bit more time, so she's allocated 25% of her time.
Right. So with this new allocation approach, then what we're doing is I'm trying to get a sense of the total impact on our tax base.
Well,
and it seems like we've shifted to the sewer budget.
What we shifted to the sewer, the salaries were already shifted. That's been shifted over the last few years.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we're shifting are costs that isn't necessarily easily determined. So like the RG&E bill, there's no way to know how much RG&E is used for sewer. That's why you wanted to come up with a percentage. That way it's a hard, okay, 22% goes to the sewer department, the rest goes to general. It's the same thing with the purchase of a computer. We determine 22% of the cost of a computer goes to sewer. It's going to be across the board for all purchases that affect both departments. If it's something that doesn't affect the sewer department, it won't be charged to the sewer department.
Okay.
So Peggy, really what this is an expansion of what has already started with the salaries being broken out, and then really taking another look and going to essentially another level of clarity about how the money does move for either general costs for our village or the sewer. So the way I look at it, what helped me was to think of sewer actually being, if it were to be in a separate building, it would have to use electricity, the copier, stamps, all of the things that we do to run a business. It's like its own separate business. That was helpful for me, at least going forward, to understand the breakout, because it brings greater clarity, I think.
I think, but looking at the actual budget is very confusing to the average person, and maybe the board can comment on that a little more. So, okay, those are my only questions of the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Peg. Okay, are there any other questions? Anyone?
No, I do not have any other questions.
Okay. One in the audience, all right. Is there a motion?
Seeing there are no more public comments, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lickett?
Aye.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye. Okay, it's back to the board. Are there any questions from the board, comments?
I'll just start with a general comment. So I obviously received some budget information over the last 3 weeks or so since coming out of the board. been watching many of the meetings. While I've been on vacation for the last 10 days, I have spent, a good amount of time trying to
That's a fun
figure
vacation.
it all out, a little bit. It was nice to spend some time with Dorothea as well in advance. So I'll just throw a bevy of questions out and hopefully get some thoughts and perspectives. So one of the first ones being, is the sewer budget currently a balanced budget?
There's always an argument whether it's balanced with the use of fund balance. Yeah, to me, it is balanced. We're taking from savings, basically out of our fund balance to make our total appropriation amount. So in my mind, it is balanced. You can look at it another way, we're unbalanced by, I think it's $45,000. And the reason I did that, instead of taking or suggested to the board to do this, I didn't see, the sewer fund, as we said, is doing fabulous. It has a healthy reserve, it has a healthy fund balance. As a matter of fact, it's high in my mind. It needs to be reduced a little bit. And we've been trying to use some of the fund balance.
Is that, I'm sorry to interrupt, is that I think would be the board's perspective, right?
Correct. Okay. I would like to believe that it actually was the comptroller's perspective.
Okay, share with me a little bit on that then.
Okay, we had 2 audits with the comptrollers. One of the things that they found with the sewer fund is it was overfunded, that we were collecting funds and just holding it in the fund balance. That was done on purpose by the board to establish the catastrophic reserve. That is one of your ways you establish a reserve.
So they were overfunding a balance that we're now tapping into, but they were overfunding it with the intent to
establish a reserve.
Okay.
And
so
because
the fund balance is available.
Correct.
Not currently allocated to reserves.
Correct.
But at one point, the intent might have been to use that for reserves.
Correct.
Currently, 45,000 of that is being used for the allocation of costs in this budget.
I think there's a little step in between.
Okay.
The village board did establish the reserve as requested by the comptroller. But in that time between establishing that reserve, that fund balance has still grown.
Still grown.
So it's still even healthier than I think it should be.
But we haven't dedicated, again, your opinion or the comptroller's opinion in terms of the health of that?
That would go back to the comptrollers.
Their opinion on that.
Our fund balance policy says 10 to 15%. I would say sewer is well above.
So the question again is, as of now, the prior board and our board here would need to make a decision of that general fund. How much of it, if any, do we need to go to the reserves? So let's just talk briefly on the reserves. Have we identified appropriately for the comptroller how those reserves could be used? And have we gotten opinions from Zach, the DPW, and others as to what we're choosing to self-insure or build for a reserve versus self-insure?
I would say when we took a look at the reserves for this year, we established the catastrophic. We came up with the new reserves we're looking to establish, which are being taken care of by the attorney. When that language is in, we will look at the sewer fund balance and decide, or the board will decide, when we put it at the right people, what portion of the fund balance at that time they would like to take towards those additional reserves.
Okay, so then let me, again, just for clarification of understanding, we have a reserve balance currently in the sewer fund.
Yes.
We don't yet have an absolute defined direction for what those reserves are to be used for or not for.
No, we do have a direction for those reserves.
We do. That was part of the presentation.
Yes, we
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
So let's come back.
And so what you're asking, you're asking great questions, because really this is still kind of the work in progress of repurposing those reserves we couldn't access. So Jeff is working with Dorothea to create the proper language.
That's in the works now.
Right, exactly.
Yep. And so in the budget, this is all good.
Yeah.
So in the budget where we had the general reserves and the language that we all didn't know what it could be used for, and now we're trying to get it so it can be used for something.
It's happening in real time.
4 lines, right? So this is all real time.
Right.
So this is kind of where I'm going. We've got these 4 lines for the sewer reserve that we're trying to define what in fact they're for.
Do we know what they're for?
We know they're for, we need to figure out how much they should be.
We have, actually,
They're funded.
We Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, you're right.
We do
Okay.
have fully funded reserves in sewer.
Okay.
Okay, we have new reserves we're asking for the sewer department. We have looked at what it'll take to make those fully funded.
Okay,
So we have dollar amounts in mind.
yep,
Okay, I can't pick one off the top of my head. But when we get them established,
yep,
that's when we're gonna look at the whole, what's left in the fund balance.
yep.
Look at our fund balance policy, because I'm gonna recommend the board increase the fund balance policy to at least 25%.
Mhm.
Going from 10 to 15, I'd like to see a base of 25. I don't think you're gonna get very far with 10.
Mhm. Well-
Anything over that amount, then start looking at what is okay to be a little over, but what should go into a proper savings bucket. So we have to get there.
Yep.
We're, I say 50% there.
This is good. So this is, again, going back to the question, we have reserves. We have a good amount of reserves. We currently have work in progress to determine all the individual line items of the reserves that are necessary. We haven't fully figured out what the total amount needs to be in terms of dollars that need to be allocated to each of those line items. There may be a time later this year or sometime, hopefully,
It'll hopefully sooner.
It'll be sooner,
This
yeah.
is good, where we have these different lines in the sewer reserves defined as to the dollar amount that's necessary for us to have the reserves be fully funded. But today, we can't make the decision that all of those individually newly created lines are fully funded.
Correct.
To some degree, they're likely underfunded, we just don't know by how much.
Correct.
Okay. This takes me back to the sewer fund, the general fund, and why, to a degree, I'm a little concerned. We have a surplus in the general fund, is that the correct word? What do you think?
We have a,
The fund balance? Is that
we have
the
a
word?
fund balance in general.
Yep.
It's much better than it's been in many recent years.
Yep.
It's healthier.
It's much healthier.
Yep.
As we go into the upcoming years.
Yep.
I do want, that is again, part of that whole discussion.
So we have a healthy fund balance.
Healthy fund balance. I wouldn't say it's a fabulous fund balance, but I say.
Healthier. It's healthier than it's been.
Yep.
Because we paid off, legal fees, we paid down, there was a settlement, a legal settlement, that last payment was made. So we're starting now to just be able to.
We're in a recovery mode.
Recover it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think this is generally true on other areas, not just sewer as well. Zach?
I was just gonna-
Zach, had his hand up.
I was just going to add that they're still not built up to a point where we can use them to offset the grant. So a lot of the work that we're proposing to get done can't do because we don't have the money to be able to spend first to be reimbursed.
Is this in the reserve or the fund balance?
In the fund
Fund balance.
In the fund balance, okay. Thank
Because
you.
most of the grants, we have to, even like we get a $100,000 grant, we have to front the money first and then be reimbursed.
And that could take, depending. 2 years.
Okay, this is all very good. So we have a bucket of money, that is our fund balance, and then we have reserves. The reserves, we haven't fully defined exactly how much money we need in all those newly created line items, but we will.
Actually, we have those numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, so then is the amount that's in reserve today sufficient to cover the total cost of what we believe that need to be in those reserve line items?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Good.
So, and that's
then-
what, just to quickly interject, because in my presentation, when we talked about establishing the new reserves in the general fund in general, the language that I use and the way I describe it is the one fund that had the language that was so unclear that we had to repurpose the money. We couldn't access it without, we're going to vote, and we're going to repurpose that money. That becomes essentially the seed money for those 4 new reserves that we want to set up, or was it 5? I'm sorry. 5,
There's
you're right, 5 reserves. We all, as a board, have already said, this is really where we should go to set up these
And I think
reserves.
that's-
So it's seed money. It's not that they're fully funded, but it's like the first step to sort of reclaiming this and moving forward.
This is a many-year plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's no, we recognize with the budget, and as we explained to the board, we don't anticipate you can automatically fully fund a reserve.
Correct, even with or without the 45,000 that we're using.
Yeah, the
from general fund.
45,000, that's helping offset the increase. It's taking out of a healthy fund balance in sewer, and I think it's a well-spent money.
Could you give me an estimate as to how much you think the reserve line items will be underfunded by?
Oh, that's hard, because when you're looking, we have one reserve we would like to see fully funded at 750,000.
And
So
what is it
right
today?
It's not established, so we're working on the language.
Mhm.
So you can't, and we're hoping to fund that within 10 to 15 years.
10 to 15 years, 10 years being $75,000 a year.
Correct.
And the first 45 of it, we might be taking from the.
Correct. Well, with sewer,
Fund
I think we have a
balance
little more
today.
leeway. When we look at these, we can take some of the existing fund balance and put them in. We haven't established how much we want to do. That's work
Right.
that's yet to be done.
So okay, this is all very good. What it tells me is we have underfunded reserves, we have a strong fund balance, and to a degree, we are looking to run the sewer in the red as to prevent, as in we're $45,000 underfunded. We have revenues coming in and appropriations going out, and our revenues are $45,000 below our appropriation. So we're taking $45,000 from the fund balance. That in prior years, had it been running a surplus, would have been dedicated or directed towards reserves.
I wouldn't say we're looking to run it into the red. I think what we are doing is looking to use a little fund balance, which we have looked to do the last couple of years and haven't been successful in doing. And I say not successful, it was a project determined, we were hoping to use about 120, 140,000 out of the fund balance to do sewer line. We really didn't end up needing that amount of work. Zach can speak to that. So we didn't end up tapping that line. So what we're doing this year is taking a little bit of it, just to help offset the cost to the residents. My projection is next year, the appropriations and the revenues should equal. And then we can look at what we want to do with funding reserves. If we want to increase this sewer rents at that time, we can. But my hope is we'll start to balance out.
So we've talked about grant funding and having the money available to get matching grants or front end a fully funded grant, and Zach, you just referenced it here today. The only ability to do that is not through the reserve funding. Those are things usually coming straight from the fund balance. Is that correct?
Yes and no.
Okay, tell me.
Depends on the project. If we're looking at a road project and we have our street maintenance reserve, we could take from that reserve to fund the project. And then when we receive the money back, refund that money.
Oh, I'm sorry, specific to sewer.
To sewer, same situation. If we were having a sewer line project, or let's say the siphon or something, some kind of repair work, and we had a grant money towards it, we could take from that reserve, use that money to do the project. When the funds came in from the comptroller, or not the comptroller, dormitory authority, we could refund that reserve.
So we're using the money from the reserve to just front the money?
Yes.
And then it goes right back in?
And, but we
Which
may
is
be
typical
creating.
for a lot of
some-
municipalities.
Yep, so we may be creating some lines in the reserve that aren't funded yet, or maybe need additional funding. And if we have a grant that hits one of those lines that doesn't have any money in it, it might be nice to have a general fund or fund balance.
Well, you couldn't use general fund offset sewer anyway. That's not legal. But when you can't take money from a reserve that doesn't have it. So if that reserve didn't have it, we couldn't take it from there. We'd have to find another way to fund that.
Through the fund balance.
Correct, either
Yes.
fund balance or a ban.
Or a ban or a bond.
The reason why I'm going down this road, I personally feel like we've got one location in the village that has a reasonable amount of money in surplus. It happens to be the sewer.
Okay.
I find it challenging to hit that up to balance the budget on the general, even though it may be more clear and concise and appropriate to allocate capital or allocate cost from the general to the sewer. I don't want to put the sewer out $45,000 that might otherwise be able to go towards the reserve, because we have a hard enough time building reserves anywhere.
Can you speak to, it's an interesting point you make, can you speak to prior to separating out sewer and really acknowledging the departments, how the general funds were used?
I would say you had, and I'm not saying, the way things have gone, you could almost say sewer reaped the benefit from general.
Yeah.
And since it's two different tax bases, you're giving village residents tax money to a non-village resident. So in that case scenario, the sewer profited the general paying for its insurance, for its postage, for its computers, for all the services that go into running a sewer department. So that was an unfair situation for general.
And that's specifically unfair because there's two districts.
Right.
Is it Wood Creek and?
Wood Creek and what's the other one? It's Line. High Street.
And so there's two locations in the village. The reason why our sewer is not just roped into the entire general.
Correct.
Is specific because there's two areas that are on the sewage.
Correct.
That are not part of the village boundary. And so as a result, the entirety of that cost is away from the general tax.
Correct.
It also happens to therefore not be a tax deductible item, whereas the general tax is.
Right, but that, that's just
the way it is. So until my conversation with you 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I had no idea how the sewer cost got billed versus the general, right? I just knew it was a cost and I paid it. And it was interesting to find that the sewer cost is taxed as a percentage of usage, whether or not you use the pool or not. So if you water your lawn a ton, you're going to have a higher sewerage cost than if you don't.
And that's something we actually want to look at.
So there's different ways, I suspect.
There's a different model that we want to bring back to the board. Yeah.
So I do think that one of the ways to appropriately consider the separate line item is to say, as we're trying to do, match cost, right, with appropriate revenue generated the right way. But if you have at least one part of the village that's running efficiently, heretofore, maybe more efficiently than it should have, I don't necessarily want to try to reap it back out right away. I would rather just simply have it run a balanced budget, figure out what the reserves should be, figure out the balance those reserves should take with long-term planning. And then if to have the budget be balanced, we have to tax or have a higher cost on the sewage, have a higher cost on the sewage. Personally, I think we could probably steal a little bit of those expenses back to the general. Seems maybe a little high, but that's a different discussion than what I was trying to lay out here right now. Again, my broad concern is the village has a hard enough time building reserves. We have the reserves now, and to appropriate general costs to the sewer, okay. But if you're to do that, to then have the sewer run 45,000 in the red, essentially pulling that money out of the surplus, which could be used for grants down the road or to fund the reserve lines that we're creating, it concerns me. I would rather be trying to figure out where do we have tax revenue come up. We've had 18 months, sorry, I'm kind of on a rant, but we've had 18 months of significant inflation in this country. We haven't had a property reassessment in 2.5 years. And most folks that I've talked to as going around the village would rather see a tax rate or a cost increase than an assessment increase. And I just did some quick math here, and this uses the mayor's numbers from her presentation. At $360,000, the average home price, at the 4.72 we're at now, that's $1,699. If we go to the 491 that we've discussed, that's the $68 difference. If the home were assessed at $400,000 instead of $360,000, which is probably the average increase over the last 2 years, that would be an increase of $188
a year
in taxes without changing the rate. A tax rate change is better than an assessed change. So when we see a property increase or a tax increase.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah,
Why is that
sure.
better? Please tell everybody, because you're on a roll here.
So a rate.
Why would that be better? So if people can understand that.
The rate increase at 4.4% is possibly as much as 10% below your property value increase over that same period of time. So the village, when we're trying to deal with inflation, we have only one way to address inflation through revenues, right? That's people spending more money, so that's the county sending us cash, right? The state, by chance, sending us cash, or the 50% of our revenues coming from property taxes. So if 50% of our revenue coming from property taxes is coming off an asset that hasn't appreciated based on assessments for 2.5 years, which I'm perfectly fine with, as I would suspect most people are, the argument is the rate increase is a much smaller impact on that homeowner than a reassessment. So if we were to see assessments be flat, but rates go up by 8%, that still would be a savings to that homeowner. Now, the argument against that would be, well, what happens when I get reassessed? Well, then we go back to the rate and we lower it rather than raising it and keeping it going higher.
And don't we have a reassessment coming out?
My understanding is that the town will be doing a reassessment. I'm not sure on the timeline. I know it was delayed due to COVID.
Yeah, it was delayed due to COVID, so I know we have one coming down the pike.
I really didn't see anything significant when I looked at the assessment numbers this year to say that they reassessed.
So I personally, I look at the rate increase, sewer increase, and I think, yes, this is an increase of $68. But when we look at property values, the likelihood is that's a savings by as much as 70% is what it otherwise would be. And we have a challenge on reserves on the general, and I'm just looking at the sewer, and I'm like, why are we attacking a surplus when we can use that for other things down the road that we may very well need or fund reserves?
Well, I don't see it as attacking, but I think that's a strong word. Excuse me one second, you finish, and then Zach.
I would really say, the decision ends up in the board's lap. If you don't want to touch that 45,000, then raise the sewer rents to appropriate it. But I would say pushing those costs back to the general is a problem because, again, you're running two different tax bases. And although it happened that way, it doesn't mean it was right. And continuing something that was done wrong is not necessarily right. So I wouldn't say that's the way to go. Can we look at the 22% another way? Maybe. But we have established, I dotted the i's, crossed the t's. I talked to all the people I could possibly talk to make sure that number made sense and vetted it. And just looking at our day-to-day, I strongly feel that 22% is accurate. If anything, I think it's light. But I have the solid numbers to use, so I can use that. I have the backing that we need. So at the end of the day, if the board doesn't want to use fund balance out of the sewer, that is your choice. You can decide to increase the cost, the rate, to reflect that additional money needed for that sewer department. But moving that 22% back to general, I think, I don't want to say, I'm not trying to reflect on character here. I would say be irresponsible because we have guidance that says that is not proper because of the two tax bases.
I mean, that was really the acknowledgement of the best practices.
Correct.
With guidance from the state controller's office as well. Zach, you had a comment?
I was just going to ask if Village even had, if the village was able to opt out of a village-wide assessment, or if this is something that has to happen.
That would be an assessor question that I would to ask.
My understanding is there's 3 versions of assessment, right? You can rely on the town, you can have the town with the village augmenting it, or the village doing their straight assessment. I'm not necessarily making the argument that we change what we're doing, as much as it is as residents to recognize the necessity for revenues to reflect the significant increases in cost. But the thing is if you have a board that is not necessarily also understanding when assessments go up that they should do the opposite. And I know that's very rare because we barely have that trust in government or people spending the people's money, right? But there's been a big increase in cost. We all feel it. You have the numbers on your budget going from 350 to 750 on a project or 100 to 250. I mean, these are massive, and we could be only talking in the last 3.5 years. And when you look at revenues, they've not changed much. Right? So anyway, I'll just give somebody else some time to comment.
Sure. Thank you, Dave.
Feel you
appreciate your input. Yeah, just very briefly, I've raised a couple of concerns that I have with the budget. I just wanted to touch on the sewer, the allocations to the sewer fund briefly. I still do have concerns about that. I don't have concerns with the overall aspirational goal of making the sewer department a self-sustaining cost center. I think that's the right thing to do. Based on what I've seen from comptroller materials and then from speaking with our accountants, it seems like they also don't have problems with that general idea, but it's ultimately up to the board to assess the data to provide a methodology to say that this is the right allocation. And I understand that we've got very firm data as it pertains to the DPW hours, since they already build those to 2 separate buckets for sewer versus general work. And I don't want to doubt anybody else's assessment of those data, but the board has not reviewed it. And so I think that even just for some of those very basic salary allocations, I do believe that it's, we ultimately want to move in that direction. We want to make it self-sustaining. But what I would like to see is having the Board of Trustees independently assess those different areas before we actually assign the percentage.
So.
If I could
I'm sorry,
just.
sorry.
Oh, no problem. So I would like to go ahead and do that, and I just don't feel comfortable with the blanket 22% allocation. I guess the other part is that, it doesn't seem to be too big of an issue in terms of the comptroller's review of our process if we go too low. But if we go too high, to me, it's not a solid service to our taxpayers, especially ones who don't depend on the village for municipal governance, the areas of the sewer department that extend beyond the municipal boundaries. And I think it's also important to note that the bills that we get for sewer are not tax deductible. So as we put more costs over there, it's not something that can be itemized as a deduction as you can with property taxes. So I think those are serious considerations, and I would err on the side of going low rather than going high until the board has had a good opportunity to assess those allocations.
So the assumption is everybody itemizes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's, I don't know how data-driven that is.
No, I don't think that's the assumption at all. I just think
Yeah.
it's a point where we want to be careful with assigning those allocations.
Just another quick comment on sewer budgeting allocation versus property tax budgeting allocation. No matter who you are in this community, whether or not you live here, you have a home here that you stay in for 2 weeks out of the year, or somebody you stay for 3 months out of the year, you need a fully operable sewer, right? Mm-hmm. So to the degree by which you pay by use doesn't seem like, to me, the equitable approach for funding the sewers. So I hope we get to revisit that at some point.
As I just said, we're actually looking at bringing something else back to the board, because that was a concern that was identified many years ago by a number of residents that have issues with that every time they get a bill. And so we're looking at different models, and we're going to be bringing that to the board sooner than later.
And the reason I bring that up is, conversely, property taxes is a shared expense across all values, right? And it's proportionate relative to the value of.
Understood.
Right. So from a equanimity standpoint, property tax assessments versus at least how we're currently charging the sewer, to me, until the sewer gets fixed, I generally defer to property tax assessments and sewer. So to Justin's point, if we do have an open-ended discussion on the appropriations, it may allow the sewer to remain a little bit lower and to have the property tax remain a little higher.
Okay, so let's, we're having a good discussion, really, and thanks, everybody. The hour's getting late, we have other items on the agenda, so we really need to come up with the action items going forward. Do we need another special meeting going forward, I think, to really, and maybe, you're talking about a tax increase. I think we need to start having some concrete things put forth. I think you all need to get back with Dorothea, with our treasurer for our village, to move this forward. We have a deadline under New York state law. We have to adopt a budget by May 1st.
By May 1st, and I will point out, again, due to vacations and other impacts, we don't have a full board present for our next meeting in April 27th, when we normally adopt the budget. May 1st is a hard deadline. Yep. The only dates I've identified when I could possibly have a full board is a Friday and Saturday or a special meeting. Now, to have a workshop, you don't need, if trying to get the full board present for an adoption is what the board wants to do. Workshops, obviously, we just need a quorum of 3. So it's in the board's hands what direction you want to go. So
we need a special meeting. We need, you're raising issues that, we have adopted a tentative budget now that was presented in a public hearing with no comment. So it's back to the board. You have different ideas about how this budget should look. And I think that's kind of your task. That's your task, both of you, because you have raised issues and concerns that you have. I think we have a solid budget going forward this year. The budget is dynamic. It's not stagnant. We always look at how we can improve, how we can refine. So if you brought up different ways of looking at the budget, you understand the deadline, the timeline, and I think let's turn this around, and when can we have a special meeting?
One question, Dorothea. If a budget is not adopted by May 1st, which is the hard deadline, then we operate on the existing approved tentative budget. Is that correct?
If the board doesn't do anything, the tentative budget that was presented for general and sewer becomes the budget.
Is the budget.
Is the budget.
What does that mean, should that occur, for the sewer rate or the property tax rate? It goes into effect?
It goes into effect.
Goes into effect, and then and what is the cost on the village, should it go into effect for, hypothetically, 2 weeks, if it goes beyond a May 1st deadline?
I can't answer that question, because we can't change. You could,
You have to get the information into who?
I have to get it into the county. I have to file, that's a state law. I can't.
There's filing.
But then that drives
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
allocations that are cast in stone. I mean,
correct. That is not a thing you can move.
So it ends up being twice as much work.
No, it's not even twice as much work. You don't have any movement. I have to have numbers to the county. I have to pass certain things to taxes. I have to have all that so they can run those numbers. Those numbers come back, they have to be approved, then they go to the printers. It's a whole process that has to be done in the month of May. So there is no movement. So your May 1st is May 1st for every village right now. That is.
Because what are your thoughts? You're saying we adopt it for 2 weeks and then what, we change it? I mean, I'm trying to understand where it's going.
I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
If I'm here to vote on a budget and I have concerns about it, am I caught between a rock and a hard place where I basically have to approve it, or if I don't somehow?
No, I think we just talked about an action plan where we're going to have a special meeting. You folks are going to, you express your concerns.
Yep.
I think you get with the treasurer of the village and you revisit it. We have a special meeting. It's a workshop essentially to really, turn this around in whatever fashion or not, depending. And we move it forward.
So the board can revise that tentative budget anytime up to May 1st. It has to be by resolution.
Okay.
So.
But it can't be revised after May 1st. Once it's there, it's there.
That is look, I'm not the budget guru.
Yeah.
It's not my thing.
I can
But
speak a
putting
little
our
bit to
two
that.
thoughts together, I think that's the
You can amend a budget,
Amend.
but you can't touch, there's certain things you can't change. You can't change your tax rate, you can't change your certain things.
So
You can review it and say, you know what, we really overestimated, I'm not saying you did, we overestimated our sales tax revenue. We need to drop that by 50,000, we need to make appropriate cuts and appropriations to match that.
Okay.
That's how you.
But it doesn't change the rate on either the sewer or the property tax? Okay.
And nor should it, because really, it's a public document, and there is a level of legal expectation for our residents. It's not like, oops, you know what, we should have raised it again another 15%. We're going to do that in October. It doesn't, the rate is set for that fiscal year.
Okay.
Done, yeah.
The earliest the board could have a meeting right now, the four of you, would be, the posting tomorrow would be the 18th. At this point, I'm not showing the room in use. It'd be Tuesday.
Sure. Yeah. We had earlier talked about a meeting on the 19th for the budget, but I guess we didn't.
We can go the 19th, the 18th, it's up to the board.
Yeah, what works for you guys?
18th is good. 18th.
What time?
We've been setting those for like 4 o'clock.
4
o'clock on the 18th?
Yeah, 4.
Whatever it is, I'll make it work.
Just so you know, income taxes are due that day, just saying. How appropriate.
Happy day.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
18th at 4 o'clock. Okay, so we'll notice that.
We'll notice that. If there's changes or things the board wants me to try making with the budget, please present
Turn
it
this
to me so
around.
I have time to
Yes.
present to you those changes and those impacts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We're going to move forward. Let's see, where are we here? Oh, the referral from the planning board.
Yeah, I know that was an action item for me, and
Okay.
I still am collecting the information regarding.
Oh, okay.
I do have the maps, I do have my notes from that period of time when the decision was made regarding the traditional downtown district.
Okay.
I'm now, the next step is to look for the minutes. I know Joanne Shannon took extensive minutes, and I want to get the minutes from those.
Okay.
The other thing I'm going to try to do is to speak to those who were involved at the time and have them also present input regarding this. My thought generally is that I respect what the Planning and Zoning Board is requesting here, but given that we're still, because we were in COVID, and that was a very unique circumstance, that we really are just now experiencing coming back from that. Oh, you've got a talking thing too. Sorry, I'm the only one that doesn't have one.
That was Nigel, not Siri.
We're being taken over.
I know. It's the artificial intelligence out there. Okay.
I would like the opportunity, particularly given the special permit that we are considering and having the parking removed, and to see how that plays out.
Okay.
And how that affects.
Should we defer for now, because you're still kind of collecting?
Yes, I guess I'm being very conservative as far as changing our code, and there's a lot more research I'd like to do.
Thank you. No, that's great.
Okay, so I respect that the Planning and Zoning Board is anxious for a response, but I'm asking for a little bit more time.
So just for the clerk's knowledge, can I shift this to like the second meeting in May? Would that give you enough time?
The second meeting in May would be
So
good.
we'll put it in May for you.
That way,
better?
so I have it in a slot.
And the board will be here, hopefully.
No, I think we are missing a board member.
In the last meeting in May?
Yeah. How about June?
Oh, my gosh.
Sure.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
so
you
I
very
can
much.
put it in
Wait,
the
are we in June?
folder so I don't lose it.
Are we doing June?
One meeting in June?
We have one meeting in June.
That's right, we go to one meeting. Okay,
Okay.
so our June meeting?
Our June.
So June.
You're on for June.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And should we send comments to the planning board and let them know we're reviewing that?
Yeah,
Put something together.
that'll be for the liaison. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Let's see. Okay. Next up, the green infrastructure RFP that reads like War and Peace.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
How many pages was that? I know.
It was
131
300 pages, that's
Yeah.
why I didn't print
Yeah.
for anybody.
And so this was put out, when was this put out to bid? This was a while back.
Well, it was out to bid for over 30 days.
Yeah, it was a
Sent
long bid.
to 47 different vendors.
Wow.
We got one bid.
We had one response. Did everybody hear that? This is what's been going on in this climate, this economic environment. 47 vendors were contacted, and we had the one response.
Yeah, I did receive many thank yous, and keep me on your list.
Yeah. So there's that. So anyway, I don't know, Chris Catt, who was, I don't know.
He's here, and his hand is raised.
Oh, and his hand is raised. Okay. We recognize it, yep. And Chris Catt, the respondent, the one who responded to the RFP was Siemens Industry. And this is to help us.
You'll be able to speak.
Okay, and then before you start in, Chris, this was an RFP for a vendor to help our village implement our green infrastructure initiatives. They can help us with grant writing, procuring, rebates, all kinds of things. They can do monitoring for what we're trying to implement and help us with that and help us save money. We're hoping so. So Chris, you're on, we can hear you, I hope?
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I know it's been a long evening, so I'll try to be brief and look forward to answering any questions you may have. Our discussions with the village, I believe, started when it was a lot colder outside, but here we find ourselves. And thank you for taking the time to review War and Peace, as was so eloquently stated earlier. the interesting thing about qualifications is you never want to present the least amount of qualifications, right? So sometimes I think we go a little bit overkill, but there's something there for anyone's interests. So Siemens Industries, you may be familiar with Siemens from some of the other areas of the economy that we're active in. I specifically work in Siemens Smart Infrastructure. So we work with municipalities, public entities, housing authorities, school districts to develop infrastructure projects, to promote sustainability, reduce cost, and drive savings to the taxpayer's bottom line, leveraging energy savings as well as grants, incentives, capital cost avoidance. Our goal is always to create projects that are budget neutral, that address your infrastructure concerns, and understanding during the entire process that we're looking to create self-funding sustainability, and that ultimately, as elected officials, you're accountable to taxpayers. So these projects have to stand on their own.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Chris? I mean, I know it's a lot of material to digest, and I know you didn't get it. Did you get it? I know you couldn't find it or something.
I've got it, yeah.
Okay, because I knew there was a concern there as well.
I need more time for review.
Pardon me?
I need more time for review.
Okay, no, I mean, because it's a lot for us to digest here, Chris, and we, appreciate you being part of the meeting tonight.
Yes, and being patient.
Yeah, and being patient, I know. Just to edify us, how do you get paid?
Sure. So we operate in New York under Article 9 of New York's Energy and Infrastructure Law. So when we do a project, we get paid on the total cost of the project. The difference between a performance contract and other types of design build or bid spec is that we take the project from concept to completion, manage the entire process, and guarantee the units of energy saved, contractually guarantee that, and hold that risk first party. So if we project that we're going to save the village 10 kilowatts or 10 BTUs and we don't achieve that savings, we are responsible to make up the difference to said community. The other difference with a performance contract is that once it's executed, there is no change orders, right? So we can't come back if items were not estimated correctly. That's a key difference that, especially in this climate right now, because what you're seeing with out of control pricing is unfortunately becoming the standard with what's going on with inflation, et cetera. So those are a couple, things that make performance contracting different. And for many years, school districts have leveraged performance contracts to upgrade their facilities because they have, obviously many of the same constraints that you have with the 2% tax cap, et cetera. And the New York State created it so there would be a budget neutral way for municipalities, public housing authorities, school districts to reduce their energy usage, use those savings to leverage those savings rather, to improve infrastructure and reduce energy usage to create self-funding projects.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then I know in the past you had mentioned that you also are working with other smaller, municipalities such as ours and helping secure significant grants and funding.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at Siemens, we're working with larger communities, the city of Troy, New York City Housing Authority, Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, but also other communities like City of Fulton, City of Oswego, City of Hornell, Town of Lima, places that we can add value and, improve infrastructure and create opportunities, right? And with what we're seeing right now, through the federal IRA, et cetera, there's also a lot of grant funding available as well to help subsidize some of this work. But again, looking at it through the lens of how can we make sustainability improvements that self-fund and are a good long-term investment for communities, right?
Okay, thank you.
The award of an RFQ does not obligate the community to pay for anything. What it does is it allows us to work with the elected officials, department heads, and staff to analyze and develop projects for board review. And at that time, it's obviously the board's choice whether or not they want to move forward, but it allows us to have a procurement mechanism in place should the board want to move forward in an expeditious fashion. So there is no, no out clause or anything like that. So you're getting a lot of work that you would otherwise need to pay a consulting engineer, et cetera, to do.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Does anybody else have, Lily, do you have a question?
Would there be a duplication of effort by our village engineer, for instance, on any of this? Would there be a duplication of effort?
There actually probably would not. And in fact, he had mentioned that this really isn't his sort of bailiwick in terms of what we would be looking at for our green initiatives. That's a good question, though. Yeah. Any other? I know everybody's still, Chris, I think everybody just needs a bit more time to review the wonderful and lengthy material you provided, your firm provided. So at this point.
Wonderful. And
yeah, go ahead.
And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And, our goal is to work with, all of your team, right? So the engineers that you have in place, the department heads to develop these solutions. The best ideas come from getting everyone around the table.
Oh, that's a good point too. Thank you for that, and thank you for your waiting and also for your time. So I think right now what we're going to do is we're just going to defer this item. The board needs to have a little more time, and maybe as you go through the material, if you have any questions, just shoot them to Dorothea, and she can certainly, Dorothea could reach out to you if we have any additional questions.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I would ask the board when they would like me to bring this back to them.
Why don't we poll the board, at some point?
Okay.
Because we have a lot going on right now.
Yep.
And just poll the board maybe in a week or something and just see what people are with that. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. Next up, the Comida support letter for 75 Monroe.
Sure, if I may. I had requested that this be added to the agenda, and I had some serious considerations and concerns about the initial village support for the Comida abatement to the developer 75 Monroe. Essentially what we're looking at is a subsidy that would cover about 50% of the tax revenue raised on the parcel for the first 10 years after it's built. And the board a while ago did ultimately vote to approve a letter of support. That letter of support would be taken into consideration by the Monroe County Comida Board as a part of what they're looking at for ultimate approval. Different things have occurred since then. I think that we've had time to look at a spreadsheet that was presented. There were only 3 members of the board who were able to be in a workshop meeting where the Comida letter was approved. And I think the rest of us have probably had a chance to look at the data that was analyzed by the board in order to provide the motivation to issue the letter of support. Another factor is that recently we found out that the parcel on Monroe is being purchased by the town, so that'll be taken off the tax rolls, and we're actually looking at a reduction in tax revenue to the village going forward, aside from any abatement that 75 Monroe may receive. So I've gone ahead and I knew that we would have a full agenda, so I've gone ahead and issued a resolution that I think the board members have had a chance to review. It is in the packet. I don't know if it's around page 120 something or what.
Yeah,
it's a lengthy packet, but it's in there. And I wanted to open it up for discussion for board members if they have any thoughts on the resolution.
Are you making this a motion?
So the motion would be to rescind.
I will make a motion.
To rescind the letter that was voted on.
Yeah, I'll make a motion in particular to adopt the resolution as presented in the packet, which would rescind the letter of support for the Comida abatement.
But I think we're looking at a two-step process. I think the first step would be to rescind the letter, and my question would be, that he's walked out of the room, does that would it only apply because the other board, another group of trustees voted on it? No, I don't know how that works legally. So I think I'd like a clarification about that.
Oh, Jeff can't advise the board on this.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
That's right,
neither.
Stan Spitzer.
That's right.
Yep, sorry.
Could there be a hypothetical, asking for a friend?
I don't know how that works.
Why don't we talk about CMEDA? Like, what is CMEDA? And it's the County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency. And so CMEDA is its own separate entity. And from what I understand, and I know we have some lawyers in the audience who may have had some workings with CMEDA, so chime in, please, if I'm not correct. But my understanding is the intention and the mission of CMEDA is to support those developers who, for using local vendors, job creation, improvements that help the community and the public, and support minority businesses or minority vendors being used. There's probably more to the list. I don't know. I'm looking at you, Jared, because I know you've worked with CMEDA as well.
That's essentially correct, yeah.
Yeah, and so the intention is of CMEDA to really, and why communities usually write a letter of support for a CMEDA application, is that as a community, you want to say, yes, we welcome businesses. We want to support businesses that work this way, that want to have job creation and bring amenities into our community, and do some positive things for our community. All of the litigation aside with the particular applicant, when you look at the merits of what I think CMEDA would look at as an independent agency, they're going to look at what is happening for the community. There's a linear park going in, there's plantings, it was a brownfield that was cleaned up. They're looking at a larger picture. They're not looking at sort of the history that we have had. I support CMEDA and its mission, and that's why I voted to support the application. I think it's a solid mission. When we voted on supporting the CMEDA application, we in no way voted for a tax abatement. We do not have the authority in the village here to give them a tax abatement. That goes through the county and comes only through the county. So the letter of the support for this project was to support, in a sense, that we support the mission of CMEDA, what the applicant is doing on face value, regardless, again, of the litigation or anything that happened in the past. That is why I voted to support that application, and I stand by that, and I stand by my vote.
I appreciate that. If I may, Trustee Lanfear, it sounds like your question is about whether we can reconsider this item in a subsequent meeting. And as far as I know, we can. We don't follow Robert's rules, and even in Robert's rules, I believe that a matter can be considered at a subsequent meeting. What I'm mentioning here in the discussion too is that some of the circumstances have changed. We've had more time to review the data, and we're looking at certain commercial properties leaving the tax roll. So I think there's nothing binding that causes us to have to stand by the initial letter that was approved by the other board. And we can go ahead and issue whatever resolution we want.
I would like to have legal counsel on it. I'm in agreement with you. I am. I think that's,
Yeah,
I want to be on sure footing.
I'd like to clarify that in spirit and in theory, I am supporting what is being proposed, but we have not had a motion or a second for discussion. So I'm wondering exactly how this process is working. However, if we just had for a process for the point of discussion, is that I am in agreement with this because I do have, which I made clear in other meetings, a problem with a developer receiving money from our taxpayers. And so that being said, yes, in spirit, I am saying that
Okay.
we would all through this, it was about business versus our.
How are they receiving money from the taxpayers?
Because it's money that we're losing by not getting.
We don't have any money yet. This is a,
I'm saying
hang
going
on,
forward.
but going forward, all it does is incrementally add up. Didn't we just have, who just went off the Comida roll?
Shane's Alley.
It was the flour mill?
Yes.
Yes.
It just went off after,
Yes.
off the Comida roll, so now they're finally after the 10 years or whatever, finally paying full taxes. Yeah, I mean, I think no matter, the letter, I don't believe will have a bearing either way in terms of Comida's
Symbolic.
decision, so if it's a symbolic gesture you're looking at,
Yeah.
okay, but, I certainly stand by my vote,
Okay.
because I think.
I respect that, and before moving forward, I think I would feel more comfortable getting a response from our attorney regarding how we should proceed as an action item. So, and that's my opinion. I would feel much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Dave, do you have some thoughts?
Simply in reading the room, it seems like we'll get a legal opinion, and I'll think more on it between now and then. So we'll put it on the next agenda from what I can see.
Okay.
So then I'll
defer
table my
further.
motion then, and we'll forward this to our attorney.
Yeah, let's just make sure that we can all vote with a clear conscience. The one clarification, I'm just reading the letter that we did send to Comida, the final sentence being which, from February 14th, this letter will confirm that the Board of Trustees supports the granting of financial assistance to the residential portion of the project. And I think that statement I do have a concern with. I think it is a project that's going to move forward regardless. I think the jobs are there in Monroe County regardless. I think some of the decisions by which we granted it were part of settlement discussions rather than outside of that. So while I certainly respect the project's dedication to the brownfield cleanup before, I do think this is something that we should get a legal opinion on and proceed from there.
So why don't we do this? So the action item that, moving forward, then why don't we set up a conference call with our attorney? And, with the board. So
Yes.
we'll pull the board, we'll make sure everybody can kind of phone in.
Maybe the 18th would work?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure, why don't we just, because we'll all,
I'll talk to the Spitzer
Yeah.
and see if that.
yeah, we can make that happen.
And the only other argument, or only other comment that I would make is, the size and the weight of the project over the immediacy of the new residents coming to our community, there is a cost or a burden of that on the community, whether or not it's our infrastructure, our sewer, our roads. And by them not paying the aggregate appropriate cost for the size of the project, the burden of that falls upon the existing residents, and that is the cost. It isn't that our rates are going up because of them, it's the impact on the community may be significant enough to warrant additional revenues from the project rather than on the backs of the residents and the businesses that are already here.
I hear what you're saying, I disagree.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to move forward now. We have our action item. We're going to have the conference call with our attorney. Okay. Next up is item 7. It's the Village Ethics Board investigative authority and code changes. And in the beginning of the meeting, when we were asked to disclose whether or not we had a conflict of interest or any concern about an item, I expressed concern on my behalf, and I would like to have an attorney-client session, just briefly.
If I may make a slightly different proposal, we have 2 items related to the ethics board on the agenda, number 7 and 8. I had wanted to talk with our attorney about a couple of items that I think I would like to get his input on before we move into that. So what I would suggest is that along with the theme of our last agenda item, I would like to set up a session for the board with our attorney and table both 7 and 8 to a subsequent meeting.
You're requesting an attorney-client session?
I'm requesting an attorney-client session perhaps next week.
Oh, not
Next
now.
week.
He's just saying
Not
not
right now.
now.
We've been here for 3 hours
Yeah,
already.
it's a long
And
meeting.
So I would like to table 7 and 8 and have an attorney-client session and then move this.
And I just want to say, I do see our members of our ethics board here, and I do know that they wanted to express their concerns, and I feel that it would be at least appropriate if they did wish to speak, to share whatever their comments are with the board. Does that make sense or not, or should we do it after attorney-client? Just to share it.
I think it depends entirely on what the board is going to do with these agenda items after that
Yeah, after the
attorney-client
session.
session. I'm with you, I do not want to inconvenience anyone either,
I know.
but,
We should have this session.
you know, if you're going to recuse yourself,
Yeah, I know, then
you really shouldn't
I shouldn't
be a
even
part
be in the
of
room.
any of this stuff.
Are you, when you, may I have a point of clarification? When you say attorney-client, because you feel you have a conflict?
Well, I want to discuss that, I want to discuss the nature of this relative.
So it would be just you and Jeff having an attorney?
Oh, no, I would like to have the entire board.
Oh, okay.
I
Yes.
agree. That's
Okay,
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, it's
One
important.
way, and Jeff can comment on this, but one way to hear from the board members is they identified themselves as village residents who had concern and to speak generally, rather than as members of the board. Because any resident has an
I don't think it makes
opportunity.
any difference.
No,
I
it
think-
does.
I think if you wanted to get an unhappy medium, you would resolve yourselves not to comment, but listen. I mean, you could do that, I guess. I'm not sure I'm thrilled with that.
I know, I understand, and I feel badly, they've been sitting here for hours.
All right, well, I think they can make it a matter of, they're here to comment on the agenda item. If they understand that the board eventually may not, I mean, you.
Right.
You may not be.
I can leave the room for this.
No, we don't have determined that you got a conflict yet.
I know.
I think let's hear from them, and then we will not.
There will be no comment, it will just
Yeah.
simply, we can take this as public comment.
Mhm.
Would that make sense to the board? That
The
we
only
just
question
simply
I would
take this
ask-
as public comment, with nothing more than that.
The only question I would ask to you, given what I'm hearing, is
Mhm.
do you think their comments may influence your perspective of how you may want to react in advance? Thus,
I've already reacted. In other words, I'm already down a path.
would you rather spend a quick 3 to 5 minutes in a attorney-client session to see if it might take more?
I know.
I don't know anything about these things.
Oh, excuse me 1 second, yes, Mr. Palumbo.
I think members of the board would prefer to defer our comments until we
Okay.
know what's going to be fixed.
Okay, we appreciate that, and thank you for your forbearance, because I know you were interested in speaking on this matter, so thank you for that. Okay, so then we're going to have these two items then addressed in our
We
session.
could even do that virtually if it's more convenient.
Yeah,
for everybody.
I was thinking of that as well. Okay. Next up.
Did we make a date? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Did
we set a date?
We can talk.
I'll
She'll pull the-
pull the board.
She's going to pull the board.
I'll pull the
Yeah.
board.
Okay.
Mayor Plummer?
Yeah.
Can I suggest releasing that?
Oh,
I do need to hear about the urns first before.
why don't we move that topic up right now then and discuss, we're going to discuss the urns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, because Zach's had a long day. And I know he wants to hear about, talk about the urns as well. Thanks, Larry. Okay. Yeah, so the urns at Four Corners.
Thank you. May I begin?
Yes, please.
Okay. I did take some photographs. I'm sorry I didn't send them to you, but I will. The proposal is, after speaking, and I think we got an email from Paula Sherwood. She said that she was emailing all of the trustees.
I probably haven't seen it today.
I did not receive anything, so you might have received it.
She may, we'll forward it to you. If it came to me?
Yes, to you, it
Okay.
came to you,
And a couple, okay.
came to the
so-
village clerk, and I think it was
Let me see.
an excellent
Let me see what I.
introduction,
Hang
if
on,
you will,
let me see.
where she gives an explanation.
No, we love the urns.
I'm sorry.
We love the urns. We didn't put them out last year because of the construction.
Okay, so
Yeah.
her proposal is,
Okay.
knowing that we have just 3.
Oh, here it is, I got it.
You signed it?
Yes.
Oh, perfect, okay.
Oh, it's only to you and me. It didn't go.
Well, she didn't have anybody else's.
She
So
didn't
I
have
forwarded
Dorothea's?
it. I forwarded, is
Oh.
that correct English? I forwarded it.
Yeah.
It.
Okay, so
Urns,
you
it's
guys
called.
have it?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you have it now?
And Dorothea, I'll just forward it directly, just in case.
Okay.
Yeah, I
How's
know
that?
that.
So
If she didn't get it.
She makes the case for the urns returning to the four corners, understanding that we have three. And that the proposal was, and it might have been verbal to me and not included in this email, was that we have replaced two at the four corners because noting that there might not be room for.
That's the concern. We need, and they're finishing up, though.
Right.
They're going to try to finish four corners, I understand, prior to PGA.
Yes.
They're going to take those big silver
Yeah,
galvanized
they're
poles
going to
out.
try to do that.
That's the intent. If they can get both the DOT traffic controller engineers out, along with the Cold Springs electrician to coordinate a time together to be able to get everything cycled the way it's supposed to, before the PGA event happens, and they'll remove it. Running out of time because he's one guy, the electrician is one guy trying to do all this work.
Labor issue.
Yeah, might not reach that goal.
The ask, if you will, is that two of the urns be placed at whatever.
Angles?
Yes, an angle,
Yeah.
whatever works as far as space is concerned. Once those big silver things come out, I think it will create a space. I did take pictures of them, I think I can verify that. With the third urn on the corner of Church Street and Main Street, where there's a large brick apron.
Yeah, all right.
There's a very large brick apron right across from the former SJ's,
Yeah.
which would be a great spot for it. So that's the ask, if they could be placed there.
Quick question, though, because I know you had concerns about sort of the health of the urns. That was a concern,
Yeah,
moving them back and forth.
The urns are always an issue with transporting them back and forth.
Yeah.
Two pieces, each urn has three small quarter-inch bolts that hold it together. The bolts tend to snap, which the cast urn
Yes.
itself is very fragile, as we know, because we've already lost 1.5 of them. So as they age, they do become more and more of an issue, getting it back and forth undamaged.
So we have to look into stabilizing them. Maybe the spray insulation, we talked about that once before, by stabilizing them in the bottom with the spray insulation. You know,
Spray
spray insulation.
Oh, like a foam, the
It's a
foam.
foam.
Oh, that'll end up trapping moisture inside
Yeah,
and
it'll
rotting
rust
out
it.
the metal that much faster.
Okay.
It'll rust it.
The second part of this is,
That'd be my worry.
okay, is the garden club. And I think that they said they would have somebody to speak to that, so I didn't have to, that they have committed to taking care of the urns, putting the flowers in and
Are they donating them?
donating the flowers. and
Oh.
putting-
Yeah,
They did that before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of indifferent as long as we have the room to put them out. Again, if something does happen, transporting a 450-pound cast iron urn that really nobody wants to weld once it cracks because it's pretty impossible.
Okay,
mean,
If
they're
something
beautiful.
does happen, that's my worry.
well, I have to take a chance, I guess.
Okay.
We can give it a shot. If we can
You
find
guys should carry those in one hand.
Yeah, usually, one of these, yeah, sure.
whole new meaning of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
If we can make sure that, because the ramps are so much wider now,
Yeah.
we just have to make sure that it's positioned so it's not blocking anything.
So they still have more work to do. Once the
Yeah.
signal poles come out, the old ones, then the DOT is going to be coming back in June, once the PGA and
Yeah.
Catalan for Regatta is over. And they still have to do a removal of the existing curb ramps and pour concrete and then finish that, and then also finish the pavers, which is probably going to be towards the end of June.
Okay.
So
I think there's flexibility
if
here.
we're waiting
Yeah,
on
okay.
them, it won't be until the start of July. at the
Okay.
latest.
All right,
We'll just have to see we're kind of we're basically at the mercy of NISTOT.
Yeah.
That's
This
really
year-
the truth.
This year, yeah.
so once
Yeah.
it's prepared, and I think if the garden club knows that, they will maybe have plans in anticipation of, maybe.
And they
take
need
them
a
in
SWAT team and just.
Yeah, just put the place in
Okay.
once
Okay.
The urns are in place.
Okay, well, that's really
Everybody
good.
can be flexible. Okay, great.
We'll wait and see what happens with the corners, how they look, if there's enough room to put them all out there. And then we'll-
Okay, great.
Well, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, anything else?
He has his report.
My report is not prepared. I have not had much time to sit in front of my computer at my desk. I am preparing a more comprehensive version of the report that I want to send out to all you guys, but I just need probably.
Why don't we kind of, defer the reports at this point, because it's getting late, and, you guys can all receive the reports, I know.
Fine.
Just hung out.
Why not do my report? I'm here.
Oh, well, you're here, that's true, you're here, but at least we'll defer yours, how's that, because the hour's late.
Zach, is there any danger to the roped up caution tape across from the mayor's house for the kids to play on?
RG&E has just talked about the light bulb.
Yeah.
It's right by your house. Yeah, across from the mayor's house. I'm taking the hit for the team, I know.
I was just trying to lean on you.
Yeah.
As far as I know, that is safe. When it's an RG&E poles, there.
So we're just waiting for them to do something.
We're waiting on RG&E to fix it, I know, well.
Those hard plates are ancient, and the wiring for them is ancient,
Yeah.
and to diagnose the problem is difficult. Getting parts to fix them is difficult, so it's a problem, and it's been problematic for years. So
Okay.
it took them a year and a half to replace the one that went down across from Sutherland.
Oh, yeah.
Is that their yellow warning tape?
Oh, yeah, that.
It's ours, actually.
Really?
Oh, I thought they did that, you guys did that, I didn't
Yeah,
realize that.
Can we wrap it around
Do you wanna
just
do
a light
something?
pole instead? 'Cause-
Yeah, how come
It's
it's
kind
all-
of a safety issue.
Okay.
Just in case, we can remove it, I just don't want the liability if something does happen.
Right.
Again,
Well, that's on you, Dad.
I'll vacuum it.
If you go out there at night and cut it out, and it disappears.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And I won't be looking out the
All right.
front window.
Sorry to hold you up, Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry to join in. We have a public comment. I assume it was on the urns.
Oh, okay.
Almost.
Ms. Caraveras, you're allowed to speak.
Me again.
Hi, Peggy.
Can we have your guys?
Apparently representing the garden club
Thank you.
to let you all know that we would be delighted to provide the plants for the urns. We may have to do some adjusting, though. I'll have to talk with you later about whether we can get flowers by the end of June. I don't know how much. Well, we'll work on that. Anyway, we'd be glad to do that as we have done in previous years. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's just really great. Awesome. Thanks, Peggy. Yeah, thanks to everybody.
Thanks, Peggy.
Zach says thanks.
Ooh.
Okay,
Is that in the
so,
corners?
The old one.
okay, so, let's see, where are we? You're good?
I think so.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Have a
And
good night.
Steve? Yes. Your report?
Do you want to go to Steve, or you want to talk to Village Hall back entrance?
Well, how do we have him? He's been here.
45-minute drive, so.
Let's have him do his report. That's what I'm thinking, because they've been here.
Absolutely.
You never leave the building, so we know that. Okay.
Everybody should have my report, right? When?
Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions
concerns?
for him? You've been hopping.
There was an item that should be discussed and not in a public session.
Right. It's about a compliance issue.
It's executive session stuff.
Yep, and, oh, wow.
If it's what I'm thinking. Pardon? If it's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and it would be in an executive session. Should we finish up the other items?
Sure.
I know. You're right, I forgot about that. Okay. Village Hall back entrance?
Wow.
We're back, I know, back to you.
See, I knew. The bids, we received the two bids for the back entrance. We kind of touched through this within the budget hearing. The two quotes came in and they were, wow. One thing Jennifer Aarons and I did, we met with the contractors. One was willing to budge a little bit, and you can see he backed off quite a bit. There's a couple items we can even take off if we can get the DPW to join in and take care of the spoilage and redo the lawn area after the work is done.
And the initial conversation was that they would do it.
Yeah, that would save us probably around 10,000.
Yeah. We could drop
So this is where we're at. To do this project, my suggestion would be to go out to a band. I did reach out to Bernie Donegan as per the instruction I had with the board last time. I got a quote for the services. The board approved me 2,000. They want 5,000.
Oh my.
To run the numbers, but that's also coming to the board, explaining the numbers and going through the process.
This is what
If they
we
don't
talk
believe
about.
it'll be 5,000, but.
Oh, they're saying up to?
Up to 5,000.
Because we said 2, so they're
Two,
saying.
yeah.
You said 2, I said, I gotta talk to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
So without approval, I can't do what I was directed to do, so.
Well, we're going to need them anyway at some point.
Correct, you're gonna need them, if you're gonna do this project, you need them. We need to have that conversation because we still need to talk about South Street.
Yeah, South Street is, I mean,
And
there's
what-
other things coming down the
so-
pike.
I need direction.
I say pay, I mean, it doesn't, we would cap it at 5, and it could come in at 2,500.
Yeah, she doesn't believe it'll be that much, but I don't want
Okay.
to go any further.
So, all right, so based on the discussion, she's saying it wouldn't go above.
In her correspondence.
Because we're looking at more than one project to ban or bond.
Correct.
With South and Wood and all of that.
Yes, we need the numbers.
So there's no way to move forward on any of it without these numbers.
Correct.
And without them, okay.
Trustee Lightfoot has a question.
Oh, yes.
Just my personal feeling on this at this point, we're going through a period where we're reassessing, where we're looking at the budget, trying to understand the financials. I would hold on approving, having someone look at the expending up to $5,000 to look at short-term loans until we have a chance to go through more of the budget process.
I appreciate that, but it's only a few more thousand potentially. It could even be just another $1,000 to get information that we are going to need going forward if we're going to implement these projects, these capital improvements going forward regardless. I mean, I think what we're seeing really is reflective again of the times, that what we thought would maybe be a couple thousand or so, this is where we are. It could be 3,000.
2,500, it could be,
Right.
it's just, the
So
board.
so the cap being 2,000, take it to 5. So
I wasn't, I didn't want to say, okay, what can you give me for $2,000?
What can we get for 2?
I really feel the part where they come and speak to the board is of value. It's a nice set. Hearing it from me is one thing, but hearing from them giving you the full spew, everything, looking at all the numbers, it's work. And, they want to be paid for the job, and I agree with that, and
well, there's no way
I wouldn't be doing you justice.
There's no way we can move forward on any of this.
No.
We need to get these numbers, we need to get this information. And so, I mean, on a larger picture of it all, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of, different capital improvements. So if it's another couple of grand or something, I think it's not a bad investment. We need to get the proper information regardless of the budget, I mean, that's how I'm going. I hear where you're going with that. Yeah.
That very well may be a part of our future plans. I'm not denying that, but I think that by looking at the budget, we're also looking at what the priorities are of the different capital items. And I would like to have that information together. Honestly, my head is full of budget items right now. I would like to get through this process, and we're talking about another month maximum. I don't know if Mr. Donegan would be able to come in.
Well, okay, the financing is going to be one piece, okay? Scheduling Bernie Donegan to come in and talk financing, that's got to happen, okay? But it relates to the bid you have in front of you. Right now I have talked to vendor down to giving us almost a reasonable project. I need to answer this.
Yeah.
How we pay for it, can be part of the motion, that the board accepts the bid pending grant funding and financial backing. So I can give an answer to this. This project has been in the works, the board's been well aware of going out to bid, we've looked at the plans, we have all the approvals. This project is dotted, crossed, T'd. I've done everything we can do on this. I understand if you want to wait, maybe we can have this conversation, make the decision for me to reach out to Brady Donegan after our budget meeting. So where are we going with this?
Yeah, this is a project that's been before us, and was identified 6 years ago, and there's a $100,000 grant there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the overall cost is, what was it, 200, I don't know.
The bid is 218,000. If we get the DPW to join in, we can save, okay, it's just under 10. It'd be 6,000 for the DPW, a reduction of $6,000 from them to take care of the spoilage and all that. And another 2,300 if they restore the area, they grade and seed.
Okay, so it's basically dropping down to 210.
Basically around there, roughly.
Do we have any idea of when we need to accept this bid by before it expires? Was there an expiration clause?
Typically there is
The
8 days.
original one says 30 days. That was May, that was March.
Yeah, we've been
That
working
was
with him.
February 2nd.
Correct, because they brought it in, we've been working with him, he just provided this, it's dated April 10th. So, can I get another couple weeks? Maybe, but, is the number's not going to change.
Question for you.
This is where we are.
With regards to the budget, how much of this, if it were to go to bond or ban, is already in the budget on a line item?
It's not, it would totally go to the ban.
Okay, but is that in the budget?
No, it wouldn't be in the budget.
Wouldn't be in the budget?
No, because it's a ban. We're going to get a ban for the full amount to cover everything, the lawyer.
I think that
everything
also,
goes involved.
Just in the interest of time, when you sit down with Dorothea, she can go through the process of what it looks like when we do a ban or a bond, because it's for a municipality, it's a bit different,
Yeah, no, we would ban this and we'd keep the ban until we get the grant money back. And then we'd be looking at all our debts at that time. And if we can't pay it off, we'd put it to a bond. Then I would be putting it into the budget.
Okay, but it's not there now.
No, it won't be, unless we are intending to pay for the project fully. And
Okay.
that would be a miracle.
So the follow-up is, Justin, to your concern, the work that Donegan Associates would do, we would likely need at some point anyhow within the next year. How long is it good for if we get it?
Well, they're going to provide the numbers of what the ban payment would be,
Right.
so that we know, and that's numbers that would go.
Then we have the data to work with, going forward. What does that look like?
Well, what's in front of us is the application, right? The proposal for the deck entrance. And we're going to talk about Mr. Donegan's quote in the near future, I guess. We don't have to decide on that tonight. I would also suggest that we postpone the acceptance of this proposal at this time. We really just need, we've got Trustee Marshall, who's in his first meeting here. We're looking at spending $250,000, approving a $250,000 project, part of which does come from bond money, or grant money, but it's a big step that we're taking, and I want to look at our overall priorities as far as the budget goes before we jump into that.
Okay, any other thoughts?
If we get this done within the 2-week May 1st deadline that we've been talking about, I don't find that to be a big issue.
So you can go back to that vendor and tell them.
I'll reach out to Jennifer Aarons, have her reach out to him and see if.
Give us a couple weeks.
Yeah, tentative April 27th.
That's when we have to meet to look at the budget.
Yeah, I want to look at that in the context of the budget. I just don't feel like it's fair to separate it out. It defeats our hard work on an overall understanding of our finances, which we're shooting for right now.
Okay, so that's deferred. So now we're back to do you want to do your treasurer's report, or do you want to go into a session with Steve?
Double check, make sure.
Comments.
I ignored my screen. Guess it's me. I have several items. We have our bill pay. Is there any concerns on the bill pay? Or can we move that forward?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Lily got you.
It was, yeah, went to Lily.
Okay, trustee Lightgev,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Lanfair,
Aye.
motion passes.
How about me?
Mayor Palmer.
Oh, aye.
Thank you, motion passes. Same outcome. I did present the February financials. Nothing too enlightening, everything's looking on target as I anticipated. There was a couple negative items that popped up. These are due to some labor issues for the labor attorney that happened, as well as 75 Monroe. In the 75 Monroe line, there were some additional line items on that needed to be covered. There was a labor item, I think it was street administration, it was like $800. That's a constant issue, and that's because the DPW lines are spread. Sometimes they work more in one item than we think. So we just moved the labor
Move
money.
between the lines.
The one thing that will help with this, and this is one thing I want to point out to the board, when we go to adopt the budget, we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to adopt on total lines. And some of these movement of money, I can go ahead and do without board approval. It doesn't impact anything, it just makes it much easier so that we avoid the negatives when we can. Big movements of the budget would obviously be brought to the board. So it would be like anything under the clerk line. Let's see if I'm moving from photocopies to computer, you know, it's simple enough. But if it's going from one department to another department, obviously then that
You'll
would
bring
be-
it back.
It would be brought to the board. Is there any concerns with the financial?
No, we're separating, just to be clear, we're separating out the transfers from the financials, or we?
We always do.
We always do, right? That would make sense. I'll make a motion to approve the financials for February as presented.
Second.
Roll call. Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Dave Marshall. Or
Aye.
trustee Marshall. Wow.
It's all right.
It's
You
been a
can call
long
me
day.
Dave. It's all right.
Mayor Palmer.
Aye. Oh, you remembered me, thank you.
I did. Motion passes. So within these, as I pointed out, we had some negatives. I did budget transfers, which I included in here. I did try to anticipate more labor money for that 75 Monroe issue to help cover. And I tapped a few lines to get there. So if I can have approval on those budget transfers so I can make them.
Moved. Is there a second?
I'll second, and I just did have just a quick comment. I would still like to see, I'd like to better understand the reasons that we're going over some of these items. I know that we've talked about some of them just briefly, you did mention those, and I'm comfortable with those reasons. I would just like to get a better feel of why we're transferring funds after the fact in some of these cases. And I'm not sure exactly how to achieve that, but it is an area that I'd like to improve.
It's very hard. As I said, if we pass the budget a little differently, I would have the ability to flex those lines a little bit more without worrying about the negatives and only have to come to the board when it's going to be a significant issue. When I can anticipate that those lines are going to go over, I will make the budget transfer ahead, which I have done with the healthcare we saw with the last transfers. I have made those changes. Unfortunately, I was unaware of the legal bills that hit for 75 Monroe were coming. I thought we were kind of at the end with the HPB. Apparently that was false. I can't anticipate labor issues. We try not to have them, but they do. And obviously the DPW where they're working, that's out of my control. You know, there's a lot of them, if I can look and say, ooh, it's getting down. This like I'm picking a line, it's not meaning it's in trouble, but like supplies. If I looked at it and said, oh man, we got to buy a bunch of stuff, I don't have enough in there, absolutely, I'd bring it to you beforehand. When those are anticipated, they can be easily done. Some of those lines, it's very hard to anticipate.
I guess my concern, I don't want to dwell on this too much because I know it's really late and but I was talking to Trustee Marshall before this, and one of the ideas that I think he brought up, sorry if you don't mind that I go forward with this, Dave, but if we were to look, the concern is that we lose control over the finances if we're setting a budget and then exceeding it and just transferring money later. So it might make sense if we were to take a holistic look at areas where we've needed to do transfers over the last year or so and just discuss those areas in terms of where we might need to budget more money so we don't exceed those if it's less predictable.
So then it goes back to a tax increase to increase the lines in
It
the
might be,
budget.
it might be that
So
we're
I
being
think
too
that's where,
aggressive.
this is where I think I'm seeing that go.
It's-
Yeah, I can understand that.
It's difficult to do. The one thing I always say with budget, you're passing the total numbers from the whole village. So the great thing with it, it's fluid. You can move it from whatever line needs, therefore you're not overtaxing the
Right.
residents in case something happens, and that's something you're discouraged to do. So that's why you have that ability to move the lines. You know, would it always be great if I can move them ahead of time? Absolutely. Can it always be done? No. So we adjust. But I agree, as much as we can catch it, we should catch it.
Yeah, the one couple things. So this is the first time that in talking with Trustee Lightgeb, in looking at this sheet with the different colors on it, just one other quick comment. I tend to agree, it'd be nice to not have to do this as often and figure out a way maybe to do that moving forward. But there's a duplicate line there. You have two A190.4s, which is the contingency account. And part of the reason I noticed that is because it might be of interest to have a contingency account be the primary place you hit first before you hit anything else. But that, again, it's this challenge of pushing money around because it's all in the general pot. So more needs to be learned, discussed, and we'll go forward on that.
Yep, and I will tell you why I don't hit contingency right away, because I might see that another line is going to be overfunded, so I'd rather steal from there first.
Right.
So if like our insurance comes in and I'm like,
It's below, right.
it's below, we're doing great, we've already paid the full bill, I have an extra 4,000 or 5,000 in there, I'd rather steal from there first.
So let's talk more on this as we get.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a good discussion, but the hour is late.
Yep.
And we can always continue this. You can always reach out to our village treasurer at any time
Yes.
for in-depth discussions.
I neglected to give you the quotes from the chair, we did receive 3 quotes.
Sorry, we have a motion and a second, I believe, to approve.
Yeah, we do. We have to.
Oh, I thought we finished.
I don't think so, I just wanted to.
Oh, fine.
All right, so transfers.
You're all tired.
Roll call.
Okay, trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now we have the 3 quotes from, and this is the,
This is the handicap chair that the board agreed to take from fund balance to replace
Yeah.
it there. I did receive 3 quotes. I will bring that to the budget meeting, because I
Okay.
did not give them to you. The good news is, it is under the 20,000 that we are hoping not to
Oh,
pay,
good.
so,
finally.
and
some
it will
good
be a
news.
local vendor, so my
Okay.
recommendation. So we'll have that, I'll send that out when I put the packet together. It'll be a quick item.
Okay, great, thanks.
The other item is the dividend notice. This is really good news. This means you're going to be getting back 35% of what we paid on our workman's comp insurance. We've been very lucky with that over the last few years.
Yeah.
That comes in, that is not an item I budget as a revenue source, because we never know if we're going to receive that. So that is almost like a surplus bump, which will help cover whatever lines don't perform. So it's good news.
Great.
Do you know, too, the interest that we're getting on the municipal choice account right now?
It's under about 4.
About 4?
4.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, roughly.
Yeah, I think
4.
I just did CDs at 4.6.
Great, so you moved it all. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all I got.
Okay, so we need to go into executive session.
Well, first, is there any questions on my report?
Oh, yeah, let's go back to your report. Any other questions on your report? I don't have any questions, and thanks for your good work. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to?
Do we want to do member items by any
Oh,
chance first?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
right, then we can just clean it up at the end, you're right, okay. Do we have member items this evening? None for you, okay.
I do not.
They're too tired.
I will choose not to say anything.
Fully abstain, right.
Well,
Lily, do
okay,
you have a member item?
I do not.
Okay. What, you were going to say something? Now you have a member
The
item?
northwest portion of the South Main Jefferson intersection, somehow that land has to be reclaimed by the village, because right now it's being claimed by trucker routes. And it is not a good thing.
Yeah, we reached out to NISTOD about that, or Zach, no, he's not here.
My concern
Yeah.
is if we reach out to them, they'll say, oh, well, clearly the intersection needs to be widened. And I just want to make
That's
sure.
not going to happen.
Okay,
It's not going to happen. No, that's not,
I was
that's not the
concerned
way it
about
goes.
losing ground on 4.
I'd rather put a
corners.
giant rock there on the
I
corner.
thought of that
Right.
idea. And then when the urn conversation came up, I thought about that too, but that's probably not a good spot for it. But yes, so just, we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, it's on the
That
radar
was
for
the only
sure.
thing
It's so
today.
annoying. I know.
Okay.
Okay, that's good first member item. Okay, I have no member items. Okay.
nothing. So go.
You got nothing, okay. So now we're done with member items, public comment.
I have one.
Mhm.
Robert Corby, 7 Washington Avenue. There's a number of spots in the village where street trees have come out, including one spot where fresh tree came out, but nothing's been replanted. Are there still trees to go in this year, or what's? the
Yes,
plan?
we have, I think, 10 more, Zach just left, it's too bad, but I think we have 10 more trees going in, and I think it's on the list where the ash was.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, but I know Zach's on it, we had talked about it a while back, yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, now. We're good? Okay, all right. I make a motion, we go into executive session
Discuss pending litigation.
to discuss
Pending litigation.
pending litigation, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Lightkit.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, way to stick it out, Jared.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Good night, Norm.
Thank you so much,
Hey,
Steve.
Steve.
Vinegar compresses, poor guy has poison sumac.
What's wrong?
He has poison sumac.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he was clearing vines.
Got into it on
Are
his
we
property.
out? Are we ready? Okay, I make a motion that we leave executive session.
Second.
Roll
Trustee
call.
Lightkit.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Yep, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
I presented to the board a resume that we received. We did interviews for the archivist to replace that position. That's a part-time admin archivist position, 20 hours a week. I'm asking for the board to hire Alexandria Torres Vaughn at $20 an hour. Starting, we'll see. I think she's willing to start it almost as soon as possible.
So starting.
At least, let's go next Monday.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Let's really do that.
Okay, what's the date?
What is it? Oh, it's the, what is the date?
Oh,
I've lost track.
the 17th?
17.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lightkit?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much.
Okay, make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Did we make a motion to come out of executive session?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
We did.
you missed it.
Okay.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Lightkit?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you. Good
All
night.
right, you got through your first meeting.
I did.
All right. And